and looking forward to a good sharing this afternoon. And we have a lot to share with you, and we're looking forward to getting your feedback as well. So, and that goes for both in the room and also online. So let's get going. A little bit of housekeeping. You know, this is a great opportunity to get feedback on our products and our services, and you know, really get a good sense of where things are, and also discuss our upcoming and pending program changes. A few housekeeping notes. For our virtual attendees, we're offering closed captioning if you have trouble hearing the discussion. Hopefully that won't be the case. You'll find the closed captioning on the ribbon at the bottom of the screen. As we've done in the past, we'll do our best to get the recordings, the slides, and the Q&A transcripts out very quickly on our website after the meeting. Usually we've been within a day or so, so we'll be looking to do as we typically do. If some unforeseen event or technical problem comes up, we'll try to deal with it quickly, of course. And if we're unable to remedy the issue and need to end and restart, we'll communicate with all those out there in cyberspace via your email that you registered with, and hopefully get back on track quickly. Let's hope that's not the case. For the folks in the room, there's microphones on each table, and so for the questions in the room or comments in the room, make sure and grab a hold of that mic and turn it on so that the folks on the line will be able to hear you as well. All right. Speaking of questions, at the bottom of your screen, if you're online, there's a Q&A button to post questions. For in-person attendees, there are microphones, as I said, and we'll kind of alternate back and forth between the room and online. There's also a chat window. If you're having a technical problem, that's the place to put that. If you have a question, please put that in the question and answer. And so if you're having any trouble, Vincent's out there helping us, as well as Sammy in the back of the room. So if you're having any trouble, you all should have online, you should have Vincent's information, and we'll be monitoring those chat streams and such. And by the way, if you have a colleague that wants to join online at the last minute, Vincent can help with that as well. So I know we have many attendees and distinguished guests from around the world, including folks from Stat Canada and the Mexico Agricultural Statistics Organization, and not on the dais here today, but certainly available to address questions, is Juan Pham from RMA joining us here in the room. So we're happy to have all those folks. Oh, and I need to get my slides caught up. Did that. All right, Vincent, you got that? All right. Here's our agenda for today. Obviously, we enjoy the opportunity to coordinate with LMIC. The Outlook conference is tomorrow. I hope many of you will be able to stay for that event as well. In just a minute or two, we're going to switch over and we're going to have our agency representatives share a little bit about their program and what's going on and what's upcoming. It's also fine to go ahead and start posting questions and get queued up in the Q&A. We like that. Just a note for our panelists and that are both online and on the dais here, if you don't begin answering questions in the Q&A, please, then I won't see them and the folks in the room won't get the benefit of the discussion, so hold back on that. So at 2 o'clock, we're very privileged to have our Deputy Secretary, Stephen Vaden, join us. So we're going to try to make the timing. I challenge my panelists here to make us land at 1:58 Central Time exactly, so that we can switch over. But if we don't line up quite exactly, we'll make some adjustments. Following that, our Undersecretary of the Research, Education, and Economics, Dr. Scott Hutchins, will make a few remarks about our recent request for information. And then the three agencies, Dr. Kelly McGuire, myself, and Dr. Jekanowski are going to have a few remarks about some of our observations from the RFI, and then we're going to take a short break. After the break, we're going to come back and get rolling on the open forum for your questions and hopefully some good answers. And we'll keep that going until about 4:30, and then we'll conclude for the day. So that's kind of the where we're at. All right. So in the reminder email that Sammy sent to you a little bit earlier, you should all have that in your email if you want to pull it up. There's a file with highlights of each of the participating agencies today. I expect some of their remarks will be guided by what's in that document. So you may want to take a look at that for any additional discussion beyond our panelists' remarks. And so for our panelists, I ask that you please introduce yourself and provide some brief remarks. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brigitte Mead at the Foreign Ag Service to get us started. So Brigitte, I'm going to bring you the clicker.
Okay, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. As you heard, I'm Birgit Mead. I'm representing the Foreign Ag Service, where I'm currently the acting deputy administrator for the Global Market Analysis Program area. And I've been with GMA since May 20, when I joined as managing director and supported Patrick Packnett, who was the deputy administrator, and I'm sure many of you know, and he's now enjoyed retirement for not quite a year. Before joining FAS, I was 20 years with ERS, so I'm no stranger to USDA. I will just focus on two major updates for the Foreign Ag Service. One is the rollout of the new export sales reporting system, and the other one changes to our iPad website. So the export sales reporting system launch consisted of two distinct steps. On March 26, FAS successfully launched the new export sales reporting system for exporters to enter their data. And FAS we are pleased to say that our team very diligently reached out ahead of time and virtually reached every exporter and gave them an opportunity to be trained, ask their questions, and feel familiar. And that was a success. They did all enter their data as hoped. So that one went smoothly. On April 2nd, then was the rollout of the reports. The first time we published a report using the new export sales reporting system, and we opened the query system for the data users. For the most part, the launch occurred smoothly. The data received by the exporters were processed and exited correctly. As we had shown in early demonstrations and trainings, the same data are available currently as they were before in slightly changed formats. And some of the improvements happened because of user input that was received during the application development. My team and I would really like to take this opportunity to thank everybody, the exporters, the data users, everybody who participated in the trainings, in the demonstrations, and who provided feedback. We couldn't have done it without that community. It's also important to point out that the update was desperately needed. The system was more than 3 decades old. It lived on software that was no longer supported, and the cyber protocols were not, it didn't pass any such tests. We take our responsibility for proprietary data very seriously. So security was foremost. So update was not a choice, it was a necessity. So providing the export sales reporting data as required by Congress, as most of you know, is truly a team effort. And we appreciate, again, the support from the exporters and the data user community. While the launch went mostly smoothly, there were glitches. And we apologize for those, and we are working as quickly as we can. One glitch should be finalized, finished tomorrow. Maybe we can talk. We also recognize that some of these improvements introduced are changes that for some users take a while getting used to. But we assure you again, the same data are available. They are available in the reports and via the API. Some wrinkles may be left to be ironed out, and we urge you, everyone who has feedback, questions, complaints, please do reach out to our export sales reporting team directly. The email address is esr@usda.gov. The team works diligently with every person that contacts them, follows up on the questions, and we keep a log of suggestions and things that should be addressed by our IT team. And we hope to get down that list as quickly as possible. So now I turn to the iPad web page changes. That's part of the departmental website streamlining exercise. So we had a freestanding separate iPad site, and that was considered not good practice. So we hope eventually to merge all the content that was formerly available into the fold of the FAS website, but that'll take time too. The information and data on crop conditions for grain, oilseeds, and cotton have been reorganized. This content can now be found on the FAS webpage under data and analysis. I just want to point out a few highlights. The World Agricultural Production Circular, the WAP, is still available under PS&D online under data publications, but also on the FAS webpage under data analytics under reports. That's the same location for the commodity intelligence reports, the CIRs. All new reports will be published in that new location, and we are in the process of moving the archive over. It'll take a little time, but every week more reports are being carried over. 2 geospatial applications can now be found under geospatial. While Crop Explorer is not available here, the interactive GADIS system provides users with the ability to load and review crop condition data spatially, and that's on the main page, or you can switch to analytics to extract time series or graphs. We appreciate your patience while there is a migration into the cloud, and that seems to have affected the processing speed of this very data-intensive geospatial application. But as soon as that is completed, we expect load times to go back to normal. The second geospatial application that we have is the Global Agricultural Monitoring System, the GLAM, where users have the options to plot NDVI curves to compare crop seasons. In the booklet, you can find more details on each of those applications. Or feel free, don't hesitate to reach out to our director, Ron France, or any of the crop analysts. Their information, their contact information is toward the end of the WAP circulars. And those are the main updates for FAS for now.
Thank you, Bridget. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Yes, I'll turn the slides on. Thank you. My name is Tim Gravlin. I'm the Data and Analytics Officer for the Farm Service Agency. Just appreciate you guys all being here today. I want to walk through some things that happened at Farm Service Agency since we last met in October, and just show you some data products that we've put out there. This will be my 17th year at USDA. I know that's hard to believe. I look younger than that, but I started when I was 12. For those of you that are here in person, you can find these slides and you can find a number of more updates starting on page 7. And for those of you that are following along online, you'll find on a number of the slides, there's a link off to the left. So some of the things I'll be talking through are public dashboards or data products that you can interact with. And if you click that link or you click on the graphic, it'll take you to that. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is a program that was authorized under the American Relief Act of 2025. It gave disaster relief to producers that are affected by revenue, quality, or production losses. And these were in the calendar year 2023 and 2024. The program to date has paid out more than $6 billion to more than 465,000 applications. One of the reasons I want to bring this program up is it was administered in two stages, stage 1 and stage 2, and the enrollment for stage 2 ends on April 30th. So that's a deadline that's coming up. If you have producers in your area or producers that you interact with, you might bring that to their attention. It's a major program being offered by Farm Service Agency, and it has a deadline coming up in the next week. Off to the left there, you'll see a link. This will allow you to interact with the Tableau public dashboard. You can download this data and information about where the applications and payments have been most active in.
Hey, Tim, I'm getting a point online that they're not able to see your slides, so I think we're working on that. We got it resolved or no? Not yet. Maybe hang tight for just 1 minute so we.
Okay, very good. And thank you for commenting online about that.
I think we were in the same starting class, both when we were 12. Share that.
Are you guys able to see the slides online now? Could you give us a comment if you are?
Well, Tim, actually, there is a question. So while we're waiting for the slides to load, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
The FBA and SDRP dashboards are great. Thanks for them. But the direct data downloads seem to have been disabled for the dashboards. Can that be made available?
Great question. Yes, they can. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Whoever posted that online. I will make a note and we will get working on that right away. Thank you. There should be a square with a down arrow in the top right-hand corner of those web pages, and you should be able to click that and download as a CSV data file. So if that is not working, that's something that we need to take a look at. Just point that out because some folks might not know. They may be looking for a download button, and there's a square with a down arrow in the top right on most of those. If that is not working, we'll get that remedied.
All right. What do you think, Sammy? We're going to go ahead. All right.
really encouraging digital first or ability for producers to electronically sign and file their applications. So one of the things that is interesting that happened with the Farmers Bridge Assistance Program, we had more than 10% of applicants e-file for the program. We had several counties where more than 70% of applications were done electronically. That's a huge improvement and huge increase in the sort of digital interaction with our producers. So wanted to call that out. That's certainly the first time I've seen that in my time. And I think we'll see more to come on that, more capabilities, more options for our producers to do things like Bridget was mentioning on an iPad or on their phones or digitally at home. The next program was a program that the Secretary announced in February, Secretary Rollins, and it is the Assistance for Specialty Crop Farmers. There is a deadline for this program on this Friday. So this is for specialty crops and sugar producers that were not covered under the Farmers Bridge Assistance Program. So it's a program happening nearly concurrently with Farmers Bridge for a different group of producers, for specialty crop producers. The deadline is Friday. On enrollment, no payments have gone out to date. The next thing I want to highlight, the Agricultural Foreign Investment Disclosure Act of 1978 requires land that's purchased in the United States by foreign persons or entities to be disclosed. USDA has released a new online portal that we call AFIDA. The link is there to the left. You're seeing on the slides a picture on the right of the automated form where they can now file their AFIDA disclosures online. That's a big improvement over the previous way, and I think that there's been a lot of discussion in the news in the last year or so on foreign interests and land holdings, and I think that everybody's interested in national farm security and the National Farm Security Action Plan. I think this is a piece of that, is to make it easier to do that disclosure. I wanted to share that update on AFIDA. One more update. This is something that Secretary Rollins announced at the Commodity Classic just 2 months ago. This is One Farmer, One File. Again, in the new landmark technology USDA has been using, the idea is a streamlined record across agencies, not just Farm Service Agency, but if they do business also with NRCS or RMA or other agencies. The idea, if we have similar forms that are being filled out, how can we work together and how can we share that data across the agencies to minimize the amount of paperwork and streamline the application process and the filing requirements for our producers. So that's a new initiative, but I'm excited. I know everyone at FSA is excited that there's a lot more to come with the development on One Farmer, One File. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
All right, thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Jekanowski, and I'm the chairman of the World Agricultural Outlook Board. I'm going to be really pretty quick because I know Lance has an awfully lot to talk about, so I don't want to take any time away from him. But I'll give you a brief overview of what the World Board is and how we operate. World Board, we're known for basically one thing. Most of the public knows us for putting out the WASDE report. Comes out every month between the 8th and the 12th of each month, coupled with the NASS crop production report. And we are a relatively small agency, roughly 20 people or so. But important to point out for folks, I mean, some folks understand this, but it's always worth emphasizing that at the World Board, we in fact are also data users. We produce data, but we're data users. We we work with every agency on this panel. Every agency here helps to provide data, expertise, in some cases even funding to help us to put out the World Ag Outlook Board. We coordinate what USDA calls the interagency commodity estimates committees. Led by 6 individuals within the World Board, the board chairs, each responsible for a certain set of commodities. And again, our role is to coordinate all of this information across USDA and put it into the WASDE report, basically a summary document that it is really intended to help the public better digest all of this information in a supply and demand format that helps to inform markets. So that's what we do. That's who we are. We are just about to start the new crop year forecasts coming up in May with the May WASDE. This is the time of the year where we start to follow the marketing year from our first forecasts for production of the crops that'll be harvested this fall through the time when those crops are fully marketed at the end of next summer. So briefly, again, as I think folks who use the WASDE a lot understand, this May forecast for crop production, we're going to be relying heavily on the prospective plantings report from NASS for those initial acreage forecasts for each of the crops, coupled with our own yield forecasts. And then we'll update those acreage forecasts with the NASS acreage report that comes out at the end of June. And we'll carry our own yield forecasts until we start getting new yield forecasts from NASS beginning in August and then through the harvest season. So May 12th, that's our when that first WASDE report for this new crop year will be coming out, and then that'll give you a whole new crop year to follow through beginning to the end. So it's like planting season for us at the World Board. One other point I'll make, one other kind of item that we're responsible for, a high-profile item within the USDA, is the Ag Outlook Forum. World Ag Outlook Board organizes that each year. We held the 102nd Ag Outlook Forum, February 19th and 20th of this year. Had over 1,000 people in person. Many of folks here in this room attended. Really appreciate the support and the turnout. Always welcome feedback on that event as well. We felt it went very good this year. We had the Secretary of Agriculture on the second day, gave a speech, about 24 breakout sessions. And again, this is an event that I think USDA is proud of. It's been doing for over 100 years now, and we are happy and proud to keep that tradition going. We don't yet have the date set for 2027, but we'll be releasing those sometime over the summer, presumably. And I think that is it for me, so I will turn it over to Lance.
All right, thanks, Mark. I appreciate the extra time. It'll probably come in handy, but unlike our presentation at the Outlook Forum, I'm not going to start by talking about George Washington, so you don't need to get quite as nervous as you did that day. All right, I'll be fairly brief. My name is Lance Honig. I am the chair of the Agricultural Statistics Board at NASS. I also serve as director of our methodology division and currently acting director of our statistics division. I've been with NASS for a little over 2 Tim Gravelins, I guess. So now that you're now the basis by which we'll all measure ourselves, Tim. I was a little over 12 when I started. All right, so just a few updates at NASS since we last met as well. This part is not anything new. As usual, we continue to publish about 450 reports each and every year, covering a wide span of information across crops, livestock, lots of economic categories, as well as the Census of Agriculture, which, by the way, is coming soon. 2027 will be the next census reference year, which strikes fear in the hearts of all NASS employees as we watch 2026 tick away at us. And so that's kind of almost like an ongoing effort for us, even though it only happens every 5 years. The scope is so large that we're pretty much always working on a census. Our mission is very simple, quite frankly, to provide timely, accurate, and useful statistics in service to U.S. agriculture. And those 450 reports we do each and every year are essentially how we accomplish that task. Just a few things that are new, at least since last time we met. The first couple of these are not terribly recent, but we did want to share some good news about some programs that got reinstated. I think it was probably the last time we actually met when we talked about the discontinuation of some of these reports, right? And so we're happy to say they've made their way back. First, for the county level data, we got tons of feedback when we discontinued the county level data. Sometimes you don't know just how useful something is until you take it away. And we received that message loud and clear. From a time frame standpoint, the row crops we brought back effective with the 2024 crop season. So we actually first published those last May. For the 24 crop season. Small grain crops, we got pushed out the door, I believe it was in February of this year. Would have been, or early March, I'm sorry. Would have been a little bit sooner, but because of the government shutdown, that timeline got pushed back a little bit. And then our cattle county estimates would have been effective with the January 1, 25 estimate period there as well. Along those same lines, we brought back the July cattle report. You've already seen that as well. We published that late last July. And then one that maybe you haven't heard about, this might be new information for you. We are bringing back the cotton objective yield survey effective with this crop season as well. And so we're bringing back in the same 4 states we conducted it in before. And as a reminder, that means we'll be out in the field in late August in preparation for the September forecast for those states for that crop. So hopefully folks will be encouraged to see some information coming back into the process for NASS. Another new piece of news for us is in the recently published number of farms and land and farms estimates back in February, we actually incorporated a new statistical model for calculating those estimates. We included some information about that when we released the report as well, but just wanted to make sure that folks were aware that that change had occurred. This one is coming up here in just the next few weeks when we publish the May crop production report for almonds. Historically, that has just been a production forecast, but starting this year, we will also include acreage and yield information for that crop. So that'll be effective with the May crop production report next month, but that will remain in place moving forward for those May reports as well. Just some recently released information that doesn't come out that frequently from the Census of Agriculture. Not only do we release the census proper every 5 years, but we have a series of what we call special studies that follow up from the census. The census helps us identify who to follow up with for these projects, so that's how they're tied together. 2 of them released in 2026. The Census of Horticultural Specialties was published back at the end of February. As you would imagine, it covers a lot of information about horticultural activities across the U.S. Of note, though, this particular instance was the first time we've included data on hemp in that report. As you may or may not know, hemp was recently added to our program of work just a few years ago. On an annual basis, we publish information. This is the first time you've seen it in the Census report, which means you get even more data about hemp and hemp producers than you would have received just in the annual report. Also, earlier this year, we published the tenure, ownership, and transition of agricultural land, or total data. That was back in March. That had previously been published in 2015. So that was the first update in just over 10 years. And of course, that's largely includes data on land that's rented out for agricultural purposes. And a lot of information about the folks who do that as well. These next 2 items are also special studies. These are items that we're actually conducting during this year. They haven't been published yet. although we do plan to have the results published by the end of this year as well. The first is the Certified Organic Survey. The name kind of explains what we're looking at there. And then the second one would be the Local Food Marketing Practices Study. Again, we only do that every few years as well. And you can see here we're talking about data regarding the marketing of locally and regionally produced ag food products across the country. That's always very popular information when that comes out as well. And then the last new piece of information I want to share is we are actively working on a new dynamic web-based platform to accompany our data releases. In other words, it's a new way to display data that we already have. So this is not new data, but a new way to visualize and see our data. Because it is a web-based platform, it will provide faster, more flexible, easier, more accessible, lots of fun adjectives around how you can access our data. It will use QuickStats as the backbone. And so in a way, it's another way you can interact with QuickStats without maybe going through 17 different clicks on your screen to see if you can find the item you were looking at. One big thing that's different about this is it will largely be what we would call release oriented or driven. In other words, how you display information will be based on what you would typically think of as a report on our release calendar. And so right now, QuickStats is kind of like the Wild West, right? The data's all there. You kind of go find what you can. Some people like to look at data based on when it was released or what report it was released in. This tool will give you the flexibility to do that without actually having to go hunt down a PDF and deal with all the challenges that come with working with a PDF. And so we're pretty excited about that. We're actually in what I would call the final stages of development. In fact, we anticipate we'll have a public level of testing occur sometime this summer. And if everything goes well, our plan right now is to actually be able to roll this out in full production by sometime this fall. And so keep your eyes out for more information about that. We wanted to at least give you a heads up that that's coming. Just a couple of quick reminders, because I know this is always a popular conversation piece. We do try to do everything we can to be as transparent about the procedures and methodologies we use. We have tons and tons of resources available on our website to help accomplish that. And then just the last reminder or specific item I'll mention is following each of our lockups. When we do brief the secretary or the secretary's designate on the contents of those reports, we now live stream the briefing that we hold with them. And we've been doing that for a few years, but I still find that a lot of people aren't aware of that. So we like to throw that reminder out there. If you check out the NASS YouTube channel, if you're not already checking out the NASS YouTube channel, you can find not only the live streams there, but the recordings of the past briefings as well. So also, just to be transparent, you can find all of our data on our website, and following all those major reports, you can also check us out on X and find any answers you want to get by interacting directly with us then as well. So that's the last slide that I have. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Lance. Appreciate that. And I heard at the outset, Joe Parsons say brief remarks, which at ERS we may have misinterpreted to broad remarks. So keeping with my personal motto of why write a 5-page report when you can write a 20-page report, we have a number of slides to share with you, but we endeavor to give you kind of a broad perspective on what we do at ERS and what is new and interesting. In any case, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to sit among folks that I work with regularly here. Mark actually hired me almost 15 years ago, so that's 1.3 Tims ago, I think, if we're calculating. But I worked at ERS that entire time. Absolutely love it. I've been in Outlook pretty much the entire time. I currently serve as the Deputy Director for Outlook and Staff Analysis and as a product coordinator. My team touches probably a couple hundred products every year, many of those data products, as we endeavor to get our products out onto the website. Every year we do our best to review those products and think about how we can do things better and be more transparent. We're at this meeting every year and we've received great feedback from stakeholders. So we really value that. We take that to heart and it does improve our products. Looking out, I actually see a number of folks that I'm in frequent contact with or have been over the years. I think I saw Bill Lapp come in. snuck in there a little bit. I see Dan O'Brien and Jerry and Tim and Tyler and Swan and many others. So I think it's a friendly audience, and I hope we can have, free and open conversation. Like I said, I really value your feedback. I'm speaking on behalf of myself today, but also our administrator, Kelly McGuire, who joins us in the audience. We'll be doing a quick switch right before the next session and coordinating on the Q&A. Before we get to that, though, I'll share a little bit of a brief, broadish overview of our agency and what it is that we do and what's new. So for those who perhaps are not totally familiar, the Economic Research Service is USDA's principal social science research agency. We have about 190 staff members. We have 2 headquarters, one in Kansas City, which is very convenient for our subject matter experts, SMEs, who are joining us today. Many are located over there and around the room, and also folks in DC and around the country as well. So we are a principal federal statistical agency, one of 13. Several other principal statistical agencies are represented here as well. We are united in our mission to ensure quality, objective, and transparent statistical information. That's really important to us, and we take that mission to heart. In terms of our public-facing products, including data products, every year our SMEs coordinate to produce more than 300 publications. Something we had in fiscal year 25. And I split out some of the major categories. Of course, we do quite a bit of research. We had 54 research reports. One of our major products, though, is the Outlook reports, and those are coordinated with the release of the WSDA in many cases, with the exception being our specialty crops Outlook reports. We also produce a number of peer-reviewed journal articles in a variety of different outlets. So for this week in data, we have a number of different products coming out. As I mentioned, we do produce quite a number of data products, about 100 total data products and visualizations. 70% of those or so are data products. This week already, and you've got an SME for this product in the audience, we've released the bioenergy statistics. So if you have questions, Steve Ramsey is right here in the audience. We also updated 2 suites of specialty crops data and calendar year trade data. James, I see you right there. And on Friday, we have our food price outlook data product being updated as well. So we're constantly putting out new material, but in addition, and in an effort to be very transparent, as Lance mentioned, that's an important part of being a federal statistical agency. We've been working to update our documentation. So frequently we're reviewing the material we have out there that describes our methods, and we're taking feedback from you that says, how did you do this? Could you be more clear here? And then providing those updates often in lockstep with when we update a data product. So I hope you're seeing those improvements on the website. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of a flavor of the variety of different data products that we have out there. Many of you probably know us through 1 or 2 of our different data products, but we have 4 divisions, and we have just a whole bunch of subject matter experts that are coming together using data, a lot of times from folks with the agencies represented up here, aggregating and transforming data into other types of products that we hope are useful for stakeholders. Of course, one of our probably most visible products are directly linked to the WSDA. That's our Outlook data products. Many of those are updated every month, but there's also larger products that are updated periodically and on an annual basis. Many of those are commodity specific. We also do have a number of specialty crops products and animal products, and we have members of our animal products team here today with us as well. One of our other premier data suites is the Farm Income Suite, and we've got Carrie Lakowski here as well representing for that team, and she'll be speaking at LMIC tomorrow with some updates as well. Recently, there were some updates to that data product, and there is now improved reporting on kale and beet at the state and national level, and starting at the end of last fiscal year. They also started reporting on special fuels. I know fuel is kind of a topic of interest lately, and the farm income product is reporting on diesel, gasoline, natural gas, LP gas, oils, and lubricants, among other things. As I mentioned, we have been working on enhanced documentation, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of the products that we very recently, just in recent weeks, have augmented with improved documentation. And that includes the sugar and sweeteners yearbook tables, and Joshua Wong is among us today, and he's an SME that helped us with that. Very big effort. Our cotton and wool yearbook tables also now feature enhanced documentation. our egg trade multipliers, as well as our meat price spreads data products. And we have an SME, Kate Beck-Norris, here with us today who can speak on that product as well. Okay, I want to provide an overview of some of the key issues that we're tracking and reporting on and providing data and publications on. Of course, food prices and inflation are top of mind for many folks. And as I mentioned, we have the food price outlook coming out this Friday, and that may be of interest. We also do have farm income that always garners a considerable amount of interest as we consider the profitability of farmers and ranchers. Farm input prices have also been a topic of great discussion recently, in particular fertilizers. And we've got groups of individuals that consider those. We report on them, we talk about them, we think about them in developing first year out estimates, among other products. And also the cost and returns estimates will be updated on May 1st. And that product will reveal some of the costs associated with fertilizer expenses and more. So I encourage you to check out that product as well. We also think a lot about supply chain resilience and the status of US farms. So if you look to this chart on the right-hand side, or perhaps the left-hand side of your screen, depending, we've got, I think, an interesting representation of the types of farms that make up the major sectors of US agriculture. And some of this may be surprising. And this to me highlights the power of data to maybe dispel biases and more. So I'll turn your attention to the first column, which is representative of the poultry and egg sector. And I should note too that this chart here in the report, it accompanied is built on ARMS data, which is data we collect in partnership with NASS. So you'll see for poultry and eggs that 35% of the value of production is produced by small family farms, which wasn't what I expected a priori. Now, if you look to specialty crops, though, which I think of, strawberry patches and things like that, it's actually remarkable to see that almost 90% of the value of production is produced by non-family farms and large-scale farms. So not so much the beginning farmers working in value-added, production agriculture. No, it's larger scale operations. So just 12%, according to our ARMS data, is produced by small and medium-sized family farms. So again, the power of the data to help us understand and communicate on issues that are at the forefront. Okay, in these theme areas and more, we like to offer interactive ways to engage with our data. And I think kind of a fun way that we've been doing that recently is to provide dashboards or Tableau visualizations so that you can go and customize the type of visualization of the data to your specific needs. We offer more than 60 interactive data visits, and those are often updated concurrent with the update to the underlying data product. I think every single one of these is built on a ERS data product and is not necessarily a standalone visualization in and of itself. And so they're meant to complement as opposed to replace the data product. So for example, I mentioned the cost and returns update on May 1st. And shortly after that update, the cost and returns Tableau visualization will also be updated. So you'll be able to engage with that data and look at different regions and commodity specific data for I think 16 different commodity categories and a large variety of types of cost and return estimates. And I'll mention, because Mark's up here, one of our most popular visits is the WASDE at a glance. In fact, if you Google, I think this still works. If you Google WASDE, I think it's the second link that typically comes up is the WASDE at a glance. And in this fiscal year, I believe we've had more than 100,000 views to that. So it's a really nice, again, complementary product to the WASDE report. It provides short snippets on the major commodity markets and then views of this month's forecast as well as last month's forecast. And you can look at domestic as well as international data and kind of do a comparison. You can even look across different commodity years as well. So a really handy tool. So no wonder it's popular, right? Okay. So on the report side, this is something that I've been deeply involved with for my last 1.3 TIM years that I've been at ERS. And we've got a number of folks in the audience that work on these reports. A lot of these are geared to helping stakeholders understand the changes that were reported in the WASDE, but also anything that's maybe of interest in developing in a specific agricultural marketplace. So it's a place where we can discuss in greater depth. If you've read the WASDE, you get like maybe a paragraph or two for each commodity. It doesn't give you a lot of space to go into detail and explain perhaps the why behind a choice that was made, or how a forecast is updated. So that's a place where we're able to do that. Our next Outlook is scheduled for release on the 30th, and that's our Vegetable and Pulses Outlook report. We time our specialty crop Outlook report releases to around the time of key NASS data releases for specialty crops. So we try to pair those up so it's most useful for stakeholders. We're using fresh information for you, and that keeps, I think, our content fresh and useful. I think those reports get picked up pretty frequently. They're wonderful fuel for our charts of note, and also just kind of describe a range of products that I think that we can all kind of engage with, because a lot of them are products that we actually directly consume, like bananas and grapes and things like that. So wonderful report. Okay. So we also offer longer format reports on our data, and these are ERS research reports. We have a number of different ones that we've published recently on the screen here. I may bring to your attention a couple that have been published just within the last couple of weeks. Last week, we published the risk management practices of U.S. farmers and ranchers, a wonderful compilation document that's already garnered a lot of attention. We also, just at the end of March, published the beginning farmers and ranchers operation characteristics associated with farm success. So another great report to take a look at. And additionally, and maybe of particular interest to this audience, just before that, there were 2 reports that were released that provided further documentation and explanation on methods for 2 of our big data sweeps. And the first one was an in-depth documentation of the agri-food data system, or ag-feds, as some of you might know it by. So it's a nice large report that you can look into if you want a lot of the details there. And then the second was a detailed explanation of updates made to our food dollar accounting system. And so now we have an enhanced representation of US food costs. So I think it's maybe a 40-page report. It's in depth. So if you're into that, please do check those out and get some more information. So all of this geared towards being very transparent. Because there's a bit of a showcase aspect associated with this meeting, I wanted to highlight a couple of notable things that we've done this last year since we last met, which was April of last year. So one thing I want to draw your attention to is updates to the resource requirements of food demand product. That's on the left-hand side of your screen. And this data product measures the U.S. food system's annual use of natural and human resources. The data reflects energy, employment, and water uses of the U.S. food system and can be broken out into supply chain stages, food and beverage categories, and a number of different marketing channels. That gray area there, you can see, for example, the natural gas needs of the U.S. food system. Only 4.1% of total U.S. needs for natural gas are associated with demands for the U.S. food system. Because we're getting a little short on time and I want to make sure Cole has time, I'm going to skip a few. But I do want to point out we did some wonderful work in enhancing our geospatial data offerings on the ERS website. I'll note too that NASS has some wonderful geospatial data products available on their website too. So we now have a couple, and there's about 25 different interactive map services that have been created, and you can toggle between 4 to 70 different layers. So a really rich data set if that's your thing. So with that, I appreciate your time and listening to the broadish overview of ERS. If you're interested in more information, I invite you to like, share, and follow ERS. And with that, I will cede my time and thank you for your attention. All right, Cole.
Thank you. And here we go. My name is Cole Swanser. I am a senior agricultural economist within the Agricultural Marketing Service. I'm in the Livestock and Poultry Program, Livestock, Poultry, and Grain Market News Division. As most of you are probably aware, AMS administers a wide variety of programs, including commodity grading, inspection, auditing service. We've got food purchasing programs, and delivers a number of services to build industry confidence and market credibility. I'm going to focus here primarily on our data products and data side of things a little bit. Market News has been around since 1914. We're tasked with collecting and diffusing information on the marketing of agricultural products. And so our role is to promote market transparency. And we do that in a number of ways by collecting and publishing current market information through our 4 different divisions. We've got cotton and tobacco, livestock, poultry, grain, dairy, specialty crops. We coordinate with state through state partnerships. And we also have a large organic section of information that we publish for a great number of organic products. These are some of the primary ways by which data users can access the information from AMS Market News. We've got the My Market News portal, the LMR Data Mart, LMR standing for Livestock Mandatory Reporting or Mandatory Price Reporting, which is a different section of reports. We have a number of APIs that connect directly for larger users and through Excel or statistical programs or other ways to handle larger data volumes. We have a My Market News mobile application, but people can access market news reports on their phone. And we have a number of data visualizations, which I'll touch on in just a minute. Over the last year, since last year's spring conference, there's been a lot of transitioning. We've been putting information in and transitioning into our various platforms. We've also added things like organic feed grains, hay and sod, some dairy, livestock, cotton price, regional cream multiples and prices through the dairy program into our program as well, into our data platforms as well. Just a few highlights that I wanted to touch on quickly. In the last year, we've added cotton prices, report series, and data. Cotton qualities were updated. We've made some enhancements to the specialty crops IT system, dairy market news, API enhancements, and some other enhancements to the reporting system in the dairy market portion. We also provide critical agricultural transportation information within AMS. And so our Ag Transport Open Data Visualization platform tool provides decision support for those who are involved in moving agricultural products across the country or the world. New features we've added to that in the past year provide some insights about U.S. grain, rail exports to Mexico, and U.S. inland waterway. I also wanted to touch on one kind of exciting, I think, program under development called the AI Feeder Cattle Project that we've been working on. We're developing a model that's designed to replicate the live animal evaluation that is currently performed by USDA market reporters. We're testing that use of AI and camera technology, so machine learning with camera technology and something called LIDAR or light infrared detection. When it's fully operational, this technology is expected to enhance efficiency and reduce subjectivity in the live animal grading process and allow us to greatly expand feeder cattle price discovery as well.
Hey, Cole.
Yes.
So the Deputy Secretary is ready to join us. So
Yes.
what I'd like to do, if I could, is just pause for a little bit for you. I think we're going to jump into the RFI discussion, and I'm going to come back to you before we go to break. Is that okay? All right, awesome. All right, well, mic's on. You can hear me okay? I'm pleased to have hopefully Deputy Secretary Stephen Vaden join us. We, as many of you know, recently ran a request for information for both NASS, ERS, and the Office of the Chief Economist. We had a good turnout of comments, and Jamie? One minute, okay. I'll tap dance.
Are we on? Hello?
Okay.
Can you see me there?
Yes, Deputy Secretary Vaden, we can see you. Let's see if we
Wonderful.
can pull the slide down. Matt, give us 1 second and see if we can get you a little larger on the screen, okay? There we go. Yes, sir. All right, you have the floor, sir.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone who is attending there in Kansas City. I wish I could be with you in person, as well as everyone who is attending virtually. I just wanted to stop by briefly to talk to you about how important data integrity and quality is for USDA. You've probably heard both the Secretary and I speak about this important topic. We understand that the data that we provide moves markets. We understand that it affects individual planning decisions by farmers. And therefore, we know that the data we provide needs to be correct. There's been a lot of commentary about the quality of USDA's data, both with regard to certain individual reports, as well as in regard to certain commodities over a longer period of time. One of the reasons why we put out the request for information is to emphasize that for USDA going forward, issues regarding data are not monologues, they're dialogues. We've got to engage in a constant feedback loop in order to improve. But that feedback has to be quality feedback in itself. It's not merely enough to say that a particular commodity or a particular group was disappointed with numbers as reported by USDA. Ultimately, the job of our statisticians, the job of the National Agricultural Statistical Service and the WASDE board isn't to tell us always what we want to hear. It's to tell us the truth and what we need to hear. Sometimes that's going to be good news. Sometimes we're not going to like it. The only thing we ask of them is that they be correct. And that's what the focus of our request for information, as well as this data users meeting today, is about. If there are specific things that we can do to improve our data collection, to improve our data quality, then we want to know what those items are and work with you on putting them into our system. And as I have said several times, we're going to hold ourselves publicly accountable for the quality of the data that we put out there. This year, you will see, for the first time, a report where we will comprehensively go through the major commodities and compare the predictions that we made versus the actual numbers as they were revealed as the harvest and marketing seasons came to an end. And I've told Joe, as well as everyone else who's involved in this process, that we expect to have at least 3 things to discuss in that report. First, where we get it right, we absolutely need to brag on ourselves. Number 2, where there's a miss, we need to ask ourselves some following questions. Was it a miss because of a weather event or something that really couldn't have been predicted, which late in the season after the last report dramatically affected yields or another point of data that we report? Or could there be something systemic that could repeat itself in the future that we need to take account of and make adjustments in our data policies for? And so that is why your participation in this data users meeting, as well as for those of you who submitted comments as a part of the request for information, are so important. I have received a briefing from NASS, from the Research and Education and Economics Mission Area, from the Office of the Chief Economist earlier this week about the comments that were submitted. Thank you for participating in that process. If you missed that opportunity to comment, you should consider this data users meeting your opportunity to make up for missing the comment period and to share with us ways we can do it better. This is not a one-time thing, as you know. This data users meeting may be getting more attention than it has in the past, but USDA has made it a regular feature. But we've got to emphasize that we work for you, we're responsible to the American people, and we need to be more transparent about how we collect the data and engage in a feedback loop with the users of that data to see to it that it remains top quality. That's why I'm grateful to each and every one of you who are participating in this data users meeting. I know you've allowed me to pop in and take 5 minutes of your time. I thank you very much for allowing me to do so. And I look forward when the NASS team returns to USDA here in Washington, D.C., to a further meeting with them to hear more about what you had to say today and how we can take that into account as we engage in our data collection efforts for the next crop year. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your attention to this. I also, Jamie, I think we have our other speaker online, yes? So I want to introduce Dr. Scott Hutchins. Dr. Hutchins leads the Research, Education, and Economics Mission Area and serves as our undersecretary. So let's see if we have Scott dialed in here.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Joe?
Yes, sir. You have the floor, sir.
All right. I can't see myself, which is just fine, but I'm glad that you can hear me. Listen, I just want to echo what Deputy Secretary Baden said. Really, we are so pleased of the attendance, of the participation in this data users meeting, and also for those of you and those of you perhaps not here who participated within the RFI. I just want to amplify a few things that the deputy said. First of all, I couldn't agree more on the importance of transparency in everything that we do is so critical. But I also want to add the word integrity, and he used it in the context of data integrity, which is essential. But I also want to just point out one of the key strengths of our agencies and of our process is the integrity of our people. All of these professionals are dedicated public servants, statistician, economists, and they uphold every day the highest level of integrity in the work that they do and the professionalism that they show in the work that they do. And it's, for me personally, an honor to work with them each and every day. The mantra for us in USDA, and I'm going to say as well, double down on the research, education, economics area, which I have the honor to lead, is continuous improvement in everything that we do. The RFI is one way for us to facilitate that process of continuous improvement. And it's an expression to you as well of our commitment to absolutely do that. And we did that in full partnership with the Office of the Chief Economist, and we actually co-signed the RFI together to ensure that that partnership was well recognized and understood. And it's a way for us to really raise the bar to the next level, to understand what in our process that might be, as the deputy indicated, systemic, and that we can focus on and improve, and what kinds of things that might be unique that we can still learn from and understand and recognize, particularly with the new learning tools in AI and things that we have coming forward and with us today. So I'm very pleased with the proactive and constructive approach that the agencies have embraced with this RFI and the attention that they're giving. You'll hear from them specifically about some of their near-term and long-term reflections and actions associated with this, but they have, I can assure you, taken it all in a very serious and constructive manner. I also want to call out a few supplemental key programs that we have ongoing as well, and you'll hear a little bit more about some of these. But within our mission area, we recognize as one mission area of 8, we are one of the ones that really supports the other 7. And you can see it right there on that panel with how much the NASS data is utilized, how frequently the ERS reports are utilized across USDA and across the agricultural ecosystem. One of those that process we use is called our mission to mission focus. And we use it to be proactive, to understand what each of the agencies need to develop their policies and to develop their programs. And so you'll see more of that, and you'll see intentional design as a part of what we do going forward with our research and with our reports. And so we do it as a way to proactively develop these strategic partnerships. And we also do partnerships outside. For example, you probably know that NASS has worked very constructively and very effectively with NASDA, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, to support the enumeration of their reports and to develop that partnership. And we think that's very useful because it adds a local flair and a local voice to the importance of the surveys and the importance of the data that supports all of U.S. agriculture. And finally, let me just say a couple words about any rumors or any misunderstandings you might hear. Certainly, everyone is probably aware that last year we had a number of voluntary retirements across USDA, in fact, across the United States government. But I'm here to assure you that those voluntary retirements had no impact on the production of our reports. As I heard Lance say, the 450 plus reports from NASS have been duly developed and on time delivered. We did have a bit of a lapse when we had monetary lapse for funding, but other than that, there's been no other impact on our schedule. And it is our intent and our expectation, and in fact, our commitment that we will continue to produce on time and on target quality reports. So with that, I just want to again say thank you to everyone. I want to say especially thank you to the teams there at USDA for the transparency and the approach that they take in sharing the data, explaining the data, and always looking to improve the reporting and the data. And Joe, I'll turn it back to you. But again, thank you everyone for your participation, for your comments, and your commitment to make us always do better and better in all that we do.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hutchins. And so I think what we're going to do now, I really appreciate those remarks. What I think we're going to do now is we're going to, I have Dr. Kelly McGuire is now on the dais, and we're going to start with her, and then I'll say a few remarks specific to NASS, and then we'll swing it back to Dr. Jekanowski to finish out with OCE with regard to the request for information. And then we're going to get back to Cole, and then we're going to take a break. So, Kelly.
We've got a lot to do in the next few minutes. So hi, everyone. I'm Kelly McGuire. I'm the administrator for the Economic Research Service, and many thanks to the Deputy Secretary and Dr. Scott Hutchins for their leadership and support in all of the work that we do across the department. So I just wanted to say a few words about the RFI and some of the comments that we received that were specific to ERS, although there were a lot of common themes across the agency. So the RFI was open for 45-day public comment period. The Secretary announced it at the Agricultural Outlook Forum, and then it closed on April 9th. We received a wide variety of comments, about 250 of them in total. And we've done a really nice job of kind of doing an initial scan as well as a deep dive into those comments that were received. And so one of the things that we did is kind of identify for those comments the ones that might have been specific to our agencies. And so there were about 200 of those 250 comments that were specific or mentioned work that the ERS does. Many thanks for all of the support that we received from many of you, as well as a lot of your suggestions and concerns, criticisms, things that we can do better. As Dr. Hutchins said, continuous improvement is part of our mantra, and we take that very seriously. And so one of the things that I just want to mention here are 3 things that we're doing immediately that we really can take action on right now and address some of those comments that were directed at ERS in that RFI. And so a number of the comments were related to a household food security survey that the agency has discontinued doing. One of the things that we are doing is we're engaging in the mission-to-mission conversations that Dr. Hutchins had, and we're starting off with the Food and Nutrition Consumer Services, FNCS mission area within the department. And we're having that conversation. It's going to be at the end of this month. And really, this is our opportunity to talk directly with the folks who are implementing the food assistance programs at USDA to figure out and find out what their highest research priorities and needs are, and how we as an economics shop can deliver on those needs. And then we'll be continuing those conversations across the other mission areas in the department, but we're prioritizing starting there, and that's happening just within the next 2 weeks, week and a half or so. A second theme that came from the comments was the need for modernization, using some of the more modern tools that are available, machine learning, artificial intelligence, having better ways to make our data accessible, making sure that our data are not just machine readable, but are AI ready. And so one of the things that I'm very excited about is that we are in the process of hiring a data scientist from what's called the Tech Force, which is an Office of Personnel Management, an OPM program, bringing in people to the federal government for 2-year terms who have specific data science, data engineering skills. And so we're excited to be bringing someone on board very shortly who will really be leading that effort for us so that we can make sure that we're using the best available tools to make our data as accessible and usable as possible to all of you. And then the third item, you heard of Jen Bond mention this in her remarks a few times, is with respect to the documentation. We understand that there's a need for transparency and documentation around our data products. Jen mentioned that we have almost 100 data products that we put out. And so we're methodically going through those data products and putting out what we call technical bulletins. This is kind of a more technical report that ERS puts out, which provide documentation on those key data products. And so we have one coming out very shortly, a couple of others in the works, and then we will continue doing this through our data products. They're a big lift. There's a lot that goes into producing a lot of these data products, so they're not things that we can just turn around on a dime, but we're committed to continuing to do that, and you'll start seeing more and more of those in the near future. So we look forward to more feedback from you, and thank you very much for the time that you've given in terms of giving us feedback. And I'll turn it back over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. We clearly saw some of the same themes. That most of the comments there were, I think, 15 questions that were in the RFI. So many of the same commenters had multiple comments about different aspects on a number of different items. One thing that was a clear theme was a strong support for NASS data and our geospatial data products. Maybe even a little more emphasis on the geospatial than I was originally anticipating, but I was very thrilled to see that. Not surprisingly, or not surprising to me at least, there was some expression of frustration over recent revisions, especially by those producers that commented. But another major theme was around the integration of administrative data into the estimation process. So a number of comments there, some of which probably represent some opportunity for education for us, and some also opportunity for us to do a little better. As many of you may know, or maybe not, we extensively use FSA data once available to establish planted acreage for major crops, and we adjust for coverage because the FSA data isn't complete, but it is highly complete for planted area. We also use FSA data as training data in creating some of our geospatial products. RMA failed acreage is used to validate unharvested crop area. FSA data is used by NASS to replace survey responses in some screening surveys for Farm Financial Survey and other efforts where it makes sense for us. You may or may not know that NASS publishes livestock and poultry slaughter, for example, from FSIS administrative data. We use lots of administrative data where it makes sense for us. We use some AMS data as well. Data from various administrative sources are also used to administer and maintain our list of farmers and ranchers. Talking a little bit about what we plan to do. We plan to expand our collaboration with both NASA Acres and NASA Harvest. In fact, we have a hackathon going on right now in conjunction with Colorado State University and NASS and also NASA, looking at some potential opportunities about how we can better use ideas that they may be generated there. We have an opportunity to do better about leveraging record level RMA yield information in our statistical models to validate final yield estimates before the end of the marketing year. Realize that most data, or the vast majority of data for RMA with yields, doesn't arrive in their hands until March, April, following the fall harvest. And so that represents a timing issue for a lot of the use cases, but there are some good use cases out there for us, and we plan to capture those. We will leverage one farmer, one file to capture data quicker and more efficiently from administrative sources. And I know that FSA has some efforts around leveraging or getting access to, with permission, to precision agriculture data. We are certainly involved in that with them and look to use that where it becomes available across time. We're always going to look for opportunities to replace or avoid survey requests where high quality administrative data are available and meets our timeliness and scope of information for U.S. agricultural decision making. And that's not always true. If we think about, for example, the grains and storage, there's no sensor that I know of that'll get us that, or any administrative data. But nonetheless, where available, we'll certainly take advantage, and we'll continue to take advantage of it. A number of points around response rate challenges and/or survey quality. A little bit about what we already do or have done. Our survey, and just maybe a point of clarification. Survey response has declined around the world and in all contexts for survey data collection for a multitude of reasons, and we could spend most of the afternoon talking about that. It should be noted that NASS uses online, mail, telephone, and face-to-face data collection to meet folks where they're at and maximize survey response. And we try to engage folks in a number of different ways, including email and text, to encourage response. As many of you know, we work broadly with agricultural groups to share a program of work and encourage them to share with their membership how they use NASS data and how that supports the data needs and decision making. And many of you in this room can help us with that as well. I would point out that while survey response is a useful metric and it's an important metric, it's by far from the only measure of survey quality. NASS publishes detailed discussion of its methodology and its survey programs. A little bit about what we're going to do. Our sampling plans for each survey account for a level of non-response. As part of our continual evaluation and annual sampling cycle, we are seeking approval in our OMB dockets. Everything has to be cleared with OMB. To increase the sample size for the 2026 June Ag Survey by about 35% and approximately 10% for the September, December, and March quarters. That's for the crop survey. This should substantially boost our usable reports and increase the precision for major field crop estimates. As Dr. Hutchins previously noted, NASS works closely with NASA, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, team who actually collect the data for NASS, and to make sure that we improve the tools that they use and ensure that they have sufficient NASA staff on board to maximize cooperation. One other thing that we're doing in the process of doing and will continue to do, we did it before, but we're going to expand that, is we're going to make responding easier by increasing the amount of previously reported data pre-filled in the online version of the Census of Agriculture and other collections. Should be noted that virtually all of our surveys are available to be completed online. Perceived resource challenges. What we've done. One thing that we did over the last year or so is strengthen our partnership with NASDA to support our survey operations. We've reviewed our operations and we always are looking for efficiency gain opportunities, and we've found several over the past year. What we will do, NASS is approved and in the process of hiring 50 new staff this fiscal year, and I am hopeful that those job announcements will be on the street very soon in the coming days. We have a number of modernization efforts that are producing and will continue to provide productivity gains. I'll talk about a couple of those. Accessibility, transparency, and sort of plain language, if you will. A lot of comments about that kind of lead us to believe that it's hard for folks to understand what our methodology is or their understanding thereof. As Lance mentioned in his slide, what we do now is publish lots of detailed descriptions of our methodology, performance metrics, price reactions, a track record of revisions on our major data series, and measures of uncertainty are included in major reports in the back of the publication. And of course, all data are available on QuickStats. What we're going to do, as Lance mentioned, we're going to modernize how we disseminate reports, and we're on the cusp of doing that. We're also in the process, and Brian is here in the room, is got leadership with this, with some other folks, to modernize our website and bring it into alignment with USDA standards, improving usability, and thereby making it easier to find both data and information about how we conduct our work. In our roadmap, and hopefully I'll be able to say some things more detailed in the not terribly distant future, we plan to implement an AI tool, some would call it a chatbot, that'll allow data users to ask plain language questions and get back the data that they seek. We know that it's a big hill to climb sometimes to find what you're looking for in a quick stats with 100 or something on the order of 100 million data points in it, and we'd like to make it easier. We will include plain language to inform users of the ranges on the level of uncertainty associated with key statistics. So imagine in the June acreage report, we'll talk up front in the opening paragraph or so what the range that someone might expect along with the point estimate for at least a couple of the major statistics. As Deputy Secretary Vaden remarked, we will be publishing a year in review, and I'll let Mark talk about his part, on our statistical performance for major crops, and the draft is in discussion now. We're going to continue our outreach to stakeholders, of course, and encourage groups to attend lockup to see how we conduct our work, and obviously continue venues like this to continue to get feedback. In the RFI, we got a number of very specific requests. That's not surprising. Some about very specific commodities or very specific items. And what we do with that is, as we do here, is we call for feedback and survey data in our data collection dockets. Whenever we're getting ready for the census, we ask for information and feedback. And of course, we have events like this one. What we will do and continue to do is meet with the groups that made comment and talk with them to better understand what their needs are and the request, and see if we can meet it with the requests with the resources we have available. Anyhow, those are a few quick takeaways from the RFI, at least from the NASS perspective, and what we plan to do in our near-term roadmap. So with that, Mark?
All right, thanks, Joe. I'll just wrap things up here with a quick discussion of some of the comments we got on the WASDE. So among the 250 or so comments with the RFI, roughly 60 or 65 focused on the WASDE report. And I mean, I would just say in general, the main, one of the main themes was, in fact, very strong support for the WASDE, appreciation for the information it brings to the market, and for the effort that we put into it. Generally, I mean, no, if anything, you know, comments were things like people wanting to add more commodities to it, to expand it in some way or the other. Really, no one's suggesting that it should be dropped or changed in any fundamental way. We did have several comments that revealed a little bit of a misunderstanding about the WASDE and maybe USDA data in general. For example, some misunderstandings about the role of the crop production report within the WASDE and where our numbers come from. And that to us suggests a need for continuous education, more documentation, more transparency, and that is certainly something we'll continue to work on. Also, a lot of recognition of the coordination role of the World Board, the need for support from the rest of USDA, and the importance of data integrity. And again, that is a theme for us that we're always going to continue to try to emphasize too, taking the market sensitivity of the report very seriously, and continuing to treat this data as with the level of importance and sensitivity that it deserves. Some going forward, some of the areas that we're going to focus on, going to continue to focus on, as I noted, transparency, documentation in general, getting more educational information out, including onto our website to explain our process, explain what we do, explain how the ICEC works and how the WASDE comes together. Joe mentioned, and you heard from the Deputy Secretary as well, the year in review product. We're working on a prototype right now. Our plan is to make this an annual event, an annual report coming out at the end of each marketing year, so toward the end of the calendar year annually. Basically, walking through the marketing year from the beginning to end, talking about where the forecasts started out and how they evolved over the course of the marketing year to ultimately the final estimates, and giving some explanation for how that evolution occurred and the events that led to those changes over time. Also, we're always going to be looking for new ways to, or continue to look for ways to enhance the public dialogue around the WASDE. Lance, in his comments earlier, referenced a session that we did at the Ag Outlook Forum this year, where we each described what our agencies do and the coordination between them, how the data comes together. We got a lot of really good feedback from that session. In fact, among all of the Ag Outlook sessions, it was one of the highest rated sessions. And I think that, again, it speaks to the need for the dialogue and the fact that typically when we get in front of people and have dialogue with them, either in large groups like this or smaller groups that might come visit us at USDA, we can go a long way toward increasing the understanding of what we do and how we do it, and also get really good feedback as well in terms of things that we might focus on a little bit differently, better documentation, ideas for new approaches, et cetera. So that's something that we're always going to be looking for, and we welcome any opportunities you can provide us from your own groups and industries. If you always welcome to visit us at USDA, and we enjoy talking to you. So don't hesitate to reach out. And I think that wraps it up for
All right.
my standpoint.
Appreciate it, Mark.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of hopeful that the year in review might correspond fairly closely with the fall data users meeting. We'll see how that turns out. So I want to swing back to Cole, and I know we got Joe DeCampo. We're going to bring him on for a moment, make sure that folks are aware of what's going on over at Census too, and then we'll get to a break. So Cole.
Thank you. Yes, I will jump in here and where I left off and wrap up my part here quickly. I think I was just wrapping up the AI feeder cattle project as an example of how Market News is deploying some innovative technologies in our mission to promote market transparency. And so I think I might have misspoke. Using LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging. So some of these technical and machine learning to do that portion of it. So, but that program was highlighted. That project was highlighted in the Secretary's plan to fortify the American beef industry, which also called for making market information publicly available through reporting tools that provide clear, timely market information for producers. And so with that goal in mind, AMS Market News has continued our focus on improving the user experience through dynamic data visualization tools. That began, one of the first of those began back in 2023 with the Cattle Contracts Library, which was a dynamic dashboard tool, and continued with a livestock auction dashboard, released a livestock mandatory reporting dashboard. And I'm pleased to say that our most recent dashboard was released earlier this month, the National Feeder and Stocker Cattle Dashboard, which actually replaces a static text report that existed prior to that. But this has dynamic information that producers and users can access to dive a little deeper into that information. It still includes the weekly market commentary as well with it. So that's out there. We have others under development as well, including a sheep and goat dashboard down the road. With that, these are the kinds of tools that we're trying to promote access to the data that we have out there, and allow users to get the power of data in their hands from what we provide. So look forward to any questions, and I will turn it over to Census.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Joseph DeCampo with the U.S. Census Bureau. As always, I'd like to thank our colleagues at USDA for inviting us to be part of this event. I am the section supervisor over foods and textiles in the International Trade Indicator Microanalysis branch of our Economic Indicators Division. Our group analyzes the underlying import and export data that goes into the monthly International Trade in Goods and Services press release, the FT 900, which is a joint release with Stats Canada and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. As I'm sure you all know, we will be releasing March data on May 5th. And as always, our historic data is available on USA Trade Online for free. For any additional information, please consult the booklet provided for this meeting. Thank you, and I look forward to a good discussion this afternoon.
All right, appreciate it, Joe. Thank you, Cole. Shammy, I think we were slated to go on break at 2:30. It's 2:36 and slated to come back at 3 o'clock. Can we all agree to come back at 3 o'clock? Is that right? All right, so we cost you 6 minutes, but anyway, appreciate your attention, and we'll be back on at 3 o'clock. So be thinking about your questions in the room and be writing them up out in online. Thanks. The whole crew up here, okay. I'm waiting on something to appear in my email box. I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for that, how about some questions from here in the room, and then I'll get back to some of the online questions. Who wants to start us off? I see a hand over here, is that right?
Feel selfish asking the first question. So I'll ask the
come on,
question.
Seth, I know you. Go ahead.
All right, now, I have several questions, a comment and then a request, but I'll stick to one question. So my first comment is, I just want to congratulate you all on what I saw on the slides up there in terms of all the actions that you're taking. It's almost as if there was some impediment that you recently removed that has sparked this significant growth in output. So I want to compliment you all and show that appreciation. And I'm debating whether I want to go straight into the weeds or not on my question. I think I will go straight into the weeds, just set the tone how in the weeds this kind of discussion is, which I appreciate, by the way, very much. And this is a general question. Can you guys comment at all about some of the layer flock revisions that occurred in the data reporting? Can you kind of talk about where those revisions came from? Kind of what you feel like you feel better about where that has come from, and what changes you made? Because it was a pretty significant revision at an odd time in terms of the layer flock. And then finally, my request is maybe for the census folks, given some of what we've seen in biofuel policy, is there support to kind of renew those old census reports that tracked vegetable oil use, given that at least the proposal from EPA suggested half RINs that might come back in 2028, even though I'm skeptical? Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. I figured you might go to the weeds. So what I thought I heard, because I didn't quite catch every bit of the first comment, but I think that's probably for World Board and for NASS. Who wants to start? Okay. Got it. Travis?
Thank you, Seth, for the question. I think I was planning on that question being asked today. So you're talking about the annual report for chicken and eggs, correct?
Yes, and mostly because as a member, as John Q. Public, I noticed the significant revision in Missouri's numbers, which were particular interest for me. So I wondered if you had broader comments because it influenced the national as well.
Yeah, so the Missouri change was driven based on some reports we had not received, some reporting from certain operations over a period of time. So we got the new data, incorporated it, so which caused the revisions that are reflective in Missouri itself. There's a few other states that were impacted with larger revisions than typical on an annual basis. Also, you got to take into factor with avian influenza being a 4-year process versus a 2 or 3 month process of what we were accustomed to on an annual basis. And so those challenges come into factor there. So that's not to get into information I can't share on operations that were driving those changes, but there was some information there.
Obviously, it's key that when you have a skewed population and you have some major players that we can get the data that we need to be most accurate. Joe DeCampo, I think, did you catch that question from Seth on the second question?
I did. I'm not familiar with these reports. Is that Census Bureau or Census of Ag?
No, so these are old, and I'm showing my age here. Can somebody, Bill Lapp, you would know what I'm talking about. I'm not calling you old, I'm calling you my peer. Like it's something like the M31K or something. J, yeah, okay, so it is a real thing. I'm not imagining this. And those are old census reports, census industry reports that really talked about veg oil use. And maybe we're talking too distant here, but these are reports where I think, given some of the changes we're seeing in biofuel policy by EPA, these would be really even more helpful reports if we start talking about domestic origin, if we start talking about half-RIN credits, if we start talking about things like that. So, and disagree if you think, Bill.
So this would be sort of pre the time in which the CARE reports, or the Census Agricultural Industrial reports, moved over to NASS. There were other reports that Census Bureau did, and I don't believe they do now, that did not make their way back. Is that right?
That's correct, and I think that there's been a lot of interest, and it's just an ask. I feel like I've got to put that marker on the board.
Okay.
And expect it again next year.
Got it. Lance, you got a comment?
Well, no, other than to say, as of right now, we're not aware of any effort for anything to come back in that space. But again, you've got it on record now, so we'll keep an eye out.
Okay, I've now got my online Q&A, and I'm going to go back to the start. And so there were some, Tim, for you when you were making remarks. So get ready. Are APIs available as opposed to just data downloads? And so I think that was with respect to some of the dashboards that you showed.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We have been actively looking into APIs and a way for data users to reach out and interact with our data in a more automated way. We don't have any of those at this time. So the short answer is no, we don't have any published APIs for you to interact with the data or the programs that we mentioned in the slides. But we are excited and we are working in that space towards that.
Okay, and I think you kind of addressed this earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and read this in case you didn't. Can you please restore the option to download all state and county LDP and related numbers?
That's specific to loan deficiency payments, LDPs.
LDPs and related numbers.
That is a different question than earlier, but
got it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, and I've got one more for you, fairly in the weeds, but FSA reports 4 types of millets and 357,000 acres of common. There's no legal or Latin name for common millet, so all other millet acres are underreported. Can you drop common reporting category? So question about your a metadata item, I think, in the.
Joe, if we could get the person asking that question and contact information, I think that's something I'd like to follow up on and make sure that we get them the.
You bet, and we have it, and I would have it, but I'm looking at the text of these. In the future questions, I'll have it. So Sammy's got it in the back, and we'll connect you on that for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take one more from online, and then come back to the room. USDA uses satellite assets to monitor global crop conditions through programs like GLAM and Crop Explorer. Are the same satellite platforms, particularly Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2, being evaluated for domestic conservation practice monitoring, or is there a separation between the International Crop Condition Mission and domestic practice verification needs? Thanks. I know that Steve Wallander had written an answer. And can anybody see that and read it? Because I can't see that earlier answer that he had offered the other panelists. Or if Steve, if you're online as a panelist, if you could come on and just repeat that.
He's a panelist, so he may be able to, yeah.
Steve?
Sure,
You out there?
I could
Thank
answer that
you.
quickly. I would just say at this point, our conservation practice data comes exclusively from surveys, primarily ARMS and Census, some also from NRCS and the SEEP survey. We did have a recent report on cover crop persistence that compared some of the survey data and administrative data to remotely sensed data. So that's a nice kind of first effort at making that comparison. So at this point, the remotely sensed conservation practice estimates are not being incorporated into statistics.
All right, appreciate that. How about back here in the room? Dr. Johan, it seems like there's a pattern of former chief economists asking questions. Okay.
Hey, just wanted to, again, echo what Seth said and congratulate everybody for all the fantastic reports and data services you're providing industries. I just have a real quick question about the year in review report that had been mentioned by the Deputy Secretary. And he mentioned it was for all the major crops. Just want to make sure that that includes sugar and curious which parameters for the balance sheets you're going to cover for the year in review. Is it going to, for example, for sugar, would that be including both US and Mexico? And all the other parameters that are in the balance sheet? Thanks.
Okay, I think both Lance and Mark are going to have responses.
Yeah, it's probably mostly a World Board question. Yes, sugar will be included. The intention or the plan will be to include all of the main balance sheet variables and Mexico as well. So, and like I said, basically tracing that those forecasts through the crop year.
Fantastic. And I think that the second part is going to be really valuable to everybody for all the crops, but sugar in particular. Thanks.
Sure.
I know it wasn't really directed to our part, but for consistency purposes, we're trying to synchronize across our reports. And so sugar will be included on the NASS portion as well.
Okay, I'm going to jump back out to online for a second. Can we please have any updates on a planned USDA AMS organic data dashboard? So Cole, I don't know if you or your team have anything there.
Thank you for the question. I'm not aware of specific plans for an organic dashboard at the moment, but we'll take that under advisement. I will also check back, and in case there already is development happening, and we will get back to the respond to the question.
Okay. Let's come back to the room. There's a hand. Okay.
Thank you for your attention. I was wondering about this removal of access for the some of the weather products that were supplied, like iPad and some other stuff that's usually like global. Is there a way that you're going to bring that back, or because like lamb and NDVI, all those products access has been reduced? Is that going to be released on another website, or what's going on with there?
Brigitte?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question and thank you for your interest. We are working with the IT team after the data migration. We hope to regain their attention, and we are pushing as hard as we can to get all our resources organized back online for our stakeholders. So we don't have a timeline, and I frankly cannot make promises, but I can tell you that we are advocating for it always and hard.
All right. Go back online. Probably a couple of answers out here on this. The Secretary and Undersecretary have emphasized farmer concerns around fertilizer pricing and availability. How are USDA agencies working to develop sound fertilizer pricing and availability data that could help the administration and Congress make better decisions? So who wants to go first on that one? Okay, Jen?
Thanks. So we saw this question a little bit earlier and huddled a bit with our folks that are working on fertilizer type products. So we wanted to share that we have two upcoming data releases that are related. The first is actually the cost and returns data product that's coming out on May 1st. That uses fertilizer cost by crop for 2025. And we also have an ERS research report, drivers of fertilizer market, supply, demand, and prices, which is available on our website. And we also have the farm income forecast, which will be updated on September 1st. And that provides the farmer spending on fertilizer, reflecting prices and quantities of fertilizers used both retrospectively and then as a forecast for the forthcoming marketing year. And Carrie is actually in the crowd. So Carrie, did that pretty much capture? Okay. Thank you.
AMS, I think you probably got some things to offer.
Yeah, I would add to that that AMS Market News does publish biweekly on their production cost reporting that includes fertilizer prices in that. So that is one relatively current biweekly report that gives information that is out there. There's also some information on the Ag Transport dashboard on fertilizer imports and fertilizer prices as well.
Lance, anything to offer about our collections?
We do on a monthly basis publish in our prices report. It's an indexed price, right? It's not a direct price, but we do provide a monthly update as well that keeps some current data out there as well. That's probably the most timely thing we would have. We do address fertilizer in some of our chemical use publications and some of the arms work that we do together with ERS, but I think the question was probably directed more current. So I think our price indexing would probably be the best source we would have.
Okay, how about one more question in the room, then we'll go back online. Okay? Sure, you got your hand up first.
So we've been nice and I was complimentary, so maybe this one becomes a little more provocative for you.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if this is a Lance question or a Dr. Jakanowski question. What changes may you make between the harvested and planted area for corn between your June and January report? That's kind of a Lance thing. Do you plan to make any changes on that? And secondarily, Dr. Jakanowski, would you consider letting Mike Jewison deviate on planted to harvested area in the report?
All right. Okay, so first off, procedurally, we always have the ability to update harvested acreage when we issue a production forecast. The question really comes in, when do we have information that would support making an update? And that was one of the challenges that we would have seen this past year. In fact, if you look in August when we made adjustments to planted area based on FSA certified information, we did make updates to corn harvested area. Likewise in September, again, made updates. The issue was that the only new information we had about harvested area was that the planted area changed. And so we were falling back to the harvested to planted ratio that we would have last collected in June, and therefore carried that forward. Now, what changes might we make moving forward? I would suggest that 2025 crop season was a bit different than anything we had seen in, I don't know, what would that be, 80, 90 years in terms of size. And as a result, that relationship was a bit different this year. In other words, the extra area that we planted did not translate to the same harvested planted ratio you would historically see. And that's largely because we're kind of capped on the amount of silage acres you're going to have on any given year, right? And that's because you're largely capped on silage production demand. And we also saw very high yields, not only for grain this year, but for silage. And so if anything, we actually saw a need for maybe slightly less acres for silage this year. And so as a result, when we got information directly on harvested acres at the end of the season, we discovered that that meant there were a lot more acres harvested for grain than we had previously forecast. We've discussed that many, many times. And so what's the lesson moving forward is, well, now we know when you have that many acres planted for corn, which we had not seen in 90 years, we've got another marker that we can look at. And so should that happen again this season, next season, or any season soon, how we interpret that data, we now have a partner year to look at, right? And so we won't be caught blind on that. And so I think that's the change that you might, as you put it, see in how we interpret the harvested acres moving forward during the forecast season. I don't know if Mark's going to turn Mike loose or not.
Well, I'll start. So I think what you're asking is, would the World Board deviate from a number that NASS puts out? And look, I think, it's important that USDA be consistent and have one set of official data and information. And for us, when NASS puts out data, that's what we adopt as the official, official estimate, official forecast. And I don't see us deviating from that. If anything, maybe, perhaps, there could be internal conversations. If we see a need to make an adjustment, we could have those, internal conversations. But ultimately, what we put out needs to be consistent with what NASS is putting out, so that their USDA is speaking with one voice.
Okay, I'm going to go back out online. Got some great questions out there. Hi. I've noticed that farmers' response to surveys have decreased throughout the years. Those response rates help build trust in data. What is USDA doing to increase response rates and address the decrease that we're seeing? Thanks for all that you do. From Kirsten Helm. Lance, you want to take that?
Thought I might. So there's a lot of, Joe kind of mentioned it earlier, right? We could probably spend the afternoon talking about why, all the different reasons that response has declined in recent years. And because of that, there's many, many different things you can do to try to boost response. We're trying to do everything that we can. A big part of it has been discussed here today, right? When we talk about increasing transparency, we're listening to the comments that we hear from our farmers. We value everything about our farmers, including the input they have and the concerns that they've expressed about why maybe their responses have declined. And so, as Joe mentioned earlier, trying to not only meet them where they're at with how we allow them to provide data, but improving each of those experiences as well, whether it's, the online options that they have, whether it's the phone calls that we make, whatever it might be. We're going to try to continue to make it easier and easier to meet their needs, since we're asking for their time to provide that information. Also, we've heard from the farmers that they really want to learn more about how we do the things we do. They want us to make it easier for them to understand not only what we're asking for, but how we're going to use that data and how it's going to be incorporated into the reports that we publish. And so, again, as Joe mentioned earlier, we're going to continue to improve on the documentation, on the way that we share information about how we do the things that we do, and even this year in review report that we do, to help be more clear and more transparent and open about how well we've done and what that process looked like. And so I think those are really the high points, in addition to just things like, any opportunity we have to get in front of producers. We're going to continue to stress the importance of those reports. One of the big challenges, I think, that comes in this space is, at least in my opinion, I've said this for years, farmers are not direct users of the reports. I don't know too many farmers that when the crop production report's released, rush to get that opened up and look in it and see, now what decisions can I make? But they are relying on some source of information to help them make decisions. And I will guarantee you that whatever that source is, they or it are relying on the information that came out in that crop production report. But since it's not a direct connection, it makes it even harder for us to communicate in a clear way the importance of filling out the survey and the impact that that can have directly on their ability to make good decisions. And so not only do we try to communicate that as much as possible, if any of you in this room or in this audience online have opportunities to communicate with farmers, if you could help carry that message, that's going to benefit all of us. I think, moving forward. So that would be how I see us trying to continue to improve on the response issue.
Thanks, Lance. I'm going to go straight to Anthony Perlman with this one, and you can follow up if you want, Lance. From Ann Johans. Will NASS stay with the May release of county estimates for corn, soybeans, et cetera, going forward? Anthony is our acting chief of the crops branch. Anthony?
Yeah, the plan right now is to stay with that May release date for those crops.
Okay. One more online, and we'll come back to the room. Lauren Napoli. Thanks for the insights and discussion regarding the RFI. Agree data quality integrity is critical. We identified also a fragmentation issue where data is organized by agency versus by focus area that affects stakeholders external to USDA. For example, our organization identified 6 possible organizational buckets of data by crop, markets, price, sales, land, water conservation, plant, animal health, farm finance, et cetera. Are any unification measures across agencies being considered to decrease this fragmentation of access from the outside? And if I can, actually, I'd like to go to Dr. McGuire and see if you have any comment, because I think about ERS, I think a lot about bringing a lot of different data sources together in many cases.
Yeah, thank you. I can see nods on the panel as well as people are saying that, because we do get that not infrequently, that there are different ways to access data across the agencies within the department, and that can sometimes introduce confusion. One thing to keep in mind is typically as we start to drill down and have conversations where there could be synergies, if you will, we find that it's challenging because the data are often very specific to the program that's being administered. And so, there are unique features of the data in terms of potentially what the unit of analysis is, the frequency with which it's updated, the tools that are used to develop the data and such. And so then, bringing those things together, say in a more cohesive manner, introduces a lot of challenges, because then it becomes more difficult for the program itself to potentially use that data in the way that they need to introduce the program or to implement the program. I mean, having said that, we are always looking for ways to make those connections a little bit more easily accessible to the users. There are tools that are out there, like a data.gov, that do try to make those data available across not just USDA, but the federal government broadly. And so you can search by, keywords and find, we were talking about fertilizer data and where that exists across the federal government. So there's a lot of different, initiatives, if you will, to try to make that happen. I don't think that we have anything, sort of planned right now that I'm aware of, we can announce, but certainly something to take into consideration as we're, trying to do what I had mentioned earlier and what Dr. Hutchins said in terms of continuous improvement. But if the panel has other things to add, I think I'm certainly welcome.
I'll offer one comment. I can imagine that as I think about the AI chatbot that I mentioned in our roadmap, I can imagine one that is, really tuned and on curated USDA data wide could be a really powerful tool to address this. And this is, very common. When someone comes to a USDA asset, they just want an answer. They don't necessarily want the answer that is NASS's answer or FAS's answer or AMS. It's I have a question and I'd like to solve what I'm looking for. All right, back in the room. How about a question? Yes.
This is a question for Lance. Lance, I hate to pick on you, but I do speak to a lot of farmers, and after the last survey, specifically the acreage survey, heard from quite a few farmers who didn't even receive the survey until after it was due to the lack of reliability with the Postal Service. And so their frustration was, I would have actually filled this out, but we didn't even get it until past the deadline. So how much do you rely on survey responses via mail? And is there any chance of, changing that considering the lack of reliability with the Postal Service today?
Right. So as Joe mentioned earlier, we actually rely on many different methods of getting in touch with producers. So a typical normal process would be to not only mail a questionnaire, but mail the instructions that they would need to fill it out online to pretty much everybody, right? Because mail and the internet response are quite frankly, the cheapest way for us to get information. And plus, we want to give everybody every type of opportunity so that whichever way works best for them will work. We certainly recognize that A, not everybody wants to mail a form back, and that B, we're aware that timing is not what it used to be when it comes to mail delivery, because we not only have to get it in their hands, but they now have to get it back into ours. And so even though that form may get to them very late, folks that we haven't heard from in a reasonable time frame now go into the pool to be called by our NASDA enumerators. And so although they may not have seen the form until it was too late, I'm guessing if they check their missed call log, they may see some calls that I'm sure they just missed and weren't able to pick up, probably several of them if I had to guess. And so that's kind of the process that we would use, because we know we're not going to get everything back in the mail, whether it's a speed issue or just a choice issue. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate because, believe it or not, we actually get 15 to 20% of the forms that we mail out will come back via the mail, depending on the survey. And so it's actually more people that still want to respond via mail than you would think. In fact, it's quite a few more people respond that way than they do via the internet, believe it or not. So we recognize the challenge associated with that, and that's why we give them multiple methods.
I will say that we've had an impediment for those who have agreed that we can send them an email reminder that we have not been able to, due to some security reasons with OMB, be able to include a direct link where somebody could simply click on it. It included a code. But I believe that we are going to be able to do that very soon. So that's one more small way that we can reduce a little bit of friction in allowing folks to respond without a little easier than they might have otherwise. All right, question for Lance. Have there been any additional findings on why last year's June area survey missed the final U.S. corn plantings to such a severe degree? Per your internal review of the situation, can you speak to any of the methodological changes that may result? How can the public feel confident in this year's surveys? And you've kind of touched on that, Lance. Anything to add?
Just a reminder that you mentioned earlier that we are increasing, or at least have, petitioned with OMB to increase the sample size, which again should dramatically increase our number of usable reports or amount of usable data that will feed in this year. But no, we did not find any systemic issues with the procedures that we used that would have caused that miss. It was a bit of an unusual year, as I mentioned earlier, and so sometimes when you have an unusual situation happening, AKA many more acres than we've seen in a long, long time, sometimes a survey may behave a little bit differently. And so that's certainly one of the possibilities, but I can't point you to exactly what happened. But we're certainly taking every step we can moving forward into June of this year to put ourselves in the best position to see a more typical performance for our estimates process than we saw last year in that space.
Okay, one more from online. We'll come back to the room. The USDA and Palantir today announced the signing of a $300 million agreement. This is from Julie Ingwerson. How will USDA use Palantir software? I had not yet saw that announcement, but I don't know if any of our panelists, Tim, in FPAC, do you have some thoughts about this?
Yeah, so there's a couple of slides that I mentioned today and a couple of programs that Farm Service Agency has administered recently that did use that software. We call it Landmark software. The Farmers Bridge Assistance Program was deployed on that software. And as we mentioned earlier about the One Farmer, One File, the plan for that is to be rolled out using that software as well. I think what I would say is folks at FSA are excited about new technology, new capabilities, and options that can give for our producers. Options to do things mobilely, options to combine and streamline forms and data across different agencies. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it's going to help our producers.
Thank you. And I will say anything that sort of gets farmers used to responding online, whether it's to FSA or otherwise, we see as a great benefit for us and obviously some opportunities to integrate with one farmer, one file where it makes sense. In the room. Yes, Jerry.
Yes, basically, that's what the information was given the world.
Oh, Jerry, do you have the mic on? They won't hear you online. Sorry. Please. Well, the online people can't hear you unless you shout into the pipe. There you go.
I'll push it on. Hello, is it better? I hope so.
Yes, you're good.
All right, sorry about that. Turns out that, not that we all end up hearing things on the internet, things like that, about response rates, and that guaranteed the one that caught a lot of people's attention in the last month was this. Where it come from, I don't know. Maybe it came out of USDA data, maybe it didn't. 34% supposedly was a response rate about the acreage report. Now that I assume that was this year, I don't. And now last year's issues, and that we all knew we had a very interesting corn price situation that I think was part of the issues why we had revisions that went along. But just, I know that's not a number. I have no idea if that's right. I guarantee though it's out there, and I hope that all you people up there, myself included, try to get more people to respond to these reports. 34% makes me nervous about what kind of numbers we're creating on these surveys, which can turn around and have a, right now I think there's a big assumption that we're going to have less corn acres because of the price difference that happened from the time of early March until now and the cost of fertilizer. So I guess I don't know that what we can do for it. We all need to encourage people to respond and get the best information in the system. We can't get good information out if we don't get good information in. So it's not a statement to anybody up there. It's an encouragement of this room and everybody here to encourage producers to understand if they're going to have good USDA data, they got to participate. They can't point the finger and then say, oh, why don't we have better data? That's my complaint. That's my statement. I'll leave it go, but I'll have other questions.
All right. I would be disappointed if you didn't, Jerry. Thank you. Lance?
I would just say that it's close. That was close to being right. I think it was 37.6%.
I'm glad you noticed.
And I noticed. But yeah, and so we've been pretty transparent about that response rate, and it's gotten a lot of chatter. But again, response rate is definitely important and it's meaningful, but it's not by any means the only measure of the quality of the data that we have as well. And so I just want to caution people not to get entirely caught up in response rate and think because you know what that number is, that you know how that impacts the quality of the data, because there's a lot of other factors about how that data was distributed and things of that nature that can have a big impact on the quality. But I certainly echo your comments about the importance of getting as much response as we possibly can.
Well, my response is that I hope, 37% is really good. It's good, but the issue is that doesn't get you the other 2/3 of the people out there, what their mindset is. And so I'm not sure, not to say that we're ever going to get 75 or 80% of 15 years ago or 20 years ago, but man, we got to get half. We got to get a third, that 2/3. Somehow we got to get the enthusiasm back in the producing community. They've unfortunately come to the point of view in this thing is that, well, their information is so good, I'm not going to supply it. Well, that doesn't help them. When it's really there, they're really shooting themselves in the foot. That's my opinion. I'm sorry I'm ranting on this, but I think it really is something people in this room have to keep encouraging things in their system, that the only way we're going to get good information is the old classic, good information in, good information out. It doesn't help us when we're only getting a third of the people saying, they're telling us. And that's kind of the reason why our corn number went up last year, partly because of the price of corn, but also the fact that there was a very cautionary attitude about the data coming out, and bang, all of a sudden we get 4 million more acres of corn at the end. That's crazy. I'm done.
All right. I'll offer one comment. We want high response. And we get, depending on what survey it is, the yield surveys, we are in the 70s in many cases. And that's good. For one thing, it's a lot more efficient if we get responses. The one thing that you're alluding to is, do you have non-response bias? And how do you know if you do, right? What happened to the other folks that didn't respond, right? Are they different? And we've done studies. Essentially one thing you can do is you can look at folks that are pretty easy to get a response from and those that you have to work harder from. And we can do that whether that's in the census or other things where we make multiple attempts. And what you'll generally find is there's very little what I would call non-response bias shown. That said, we still need good response and we need it everywhere. There's parts of the United States that have better response than others. And so we're going to do everything we can to deliver on that. And we appreciate any help that y'all can give us. I'm going to go back to Anthony. Can state-specific progress reports with insights from local field offices be restored?
Yeah, we've gotten that question several times. Again, last year we had stopped the state-specific crop progress. Again, all the information is available in quick stats, and kind of like what Lance alluded to, hopefully in the future we're going to have some tools that maybe make it easier for folks to get that state-specific data. But as of right now, there is no discussions on bringing those state-specific crop weather reports back.
One more from online before we come back. For crops included in the NASS irrigation water management study, non-irrigated yields and acres, as well as irrigated yields, were not reported in 2023, only irrigated acres. Will those metrics be restored in 2027 survey/census work? So I'm not sure if that's Brian or Anthony. Must be Brian.
So for that question specifically, I don't know. I think it's something we'll have to evaluate as we plan for that program in the future of the census. But it's definitely a comment I can take back and share with the team, and we can include that in the planning.
All right, we shall do that. How about here in the room? I see. Yes, please.
I have two questions about the export sales system. Do you expect to add grand total in the new query system? And then second, will there be any formatting improvements on like the weekly highlights page, et cetera?
Can you repeat your question about the grand total?
Yeah, on the export sales query system, there used to be a grand total where you could click grand total instead of a specific country. Will we have that in the new system? It's not there currently.
I encourage you, I'll take it down. I'll add it to the list for our IT team to look into adding the functionality if it's not there. And if this can be obtained in some way that I'm not aware of, my team is online, maybe somebody can alert me, but if it's not available, I'll make a note.
All right, thank you.
And you talked about format improvements.
Yes.
I understand that there were format changes, which I believe were also derived from comments who preferred those. So part of it is user preferences. But again, I really encourage you to make your complaints or questions and suggestions for new formats known to our team.
Okay.
I can't promise those kind of changes, but we will definitely keep a list and see what we can do.
All right, thank you.
Okay, how about one more in the room, then we'll go back online. All right, back over this way. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Joe. Glenn Tonzer with K-State.
Glenn.
One comment, one suggestion, not so much a question. The comment would be is we're at a data users meeting, and I think it's well established in this room recognizes internally within USDA is a lot of self data use, right? So ERS uses NASS and vice versa. And I think I heard clearly earlier that there's several examples of required internal reporting, like how we're doing, right? As the year progresses, how our predictions are going and so forth. That is what it is. That's fine. My comment or suggestion would be, in the spirit of that, something that might be fairly easy and I think might be educational to both producers around the countryside, administrators that change over time, commodity leaders that change over time and so forth, would be to have some examples of an estimate from one agency, and let's just use corn yield from NASS as an example, or hog inventory from NASS, or whatever example you want to use, and document it how many spots in USDA it's used. So literally pick 3 or 4 high profile, widely recognized metrics that kind of align with the ones we've talked about so far that we want to do better, and document how many different ways it's used just within USDA. I think we might do some good internal education if we do that, and it might help some in the countryside as well. I know I just added an ask, right, in doing that, but if it's something you could sort of do as part of your annual report out, I think it might help with the education effort. Thanks.
Thanks for the comment.
I think that's a great idea. In fact, we actually, here within the last, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, made a very specific effort to communicate with all of our USDA partners and try to document all the different ways, all the different pieces of data we have available or used, just so that we would have that at our fingertips for an occasion maybe such as this. So, yeah, thank you.
I will say then, there's also ad hoc uses, right, that you might not otherwise anticipate. I know that when folks were trying to develop the Farmer Bridge program, they needed data and they turned, where available, TRS data on cost of production. And many of those cost of production data points came from farmers and ranchers that were reported in the ARMS survey. And so, with that data available, it was able to be brought to bear and hopefully make better decisions about implementing that particular program. So there's both static uses that we know of, and then those that it would be a little harder to anticipate. I'm going to go back to online and let's see, Karen Braun, question for the World Board. USDA's official estimate for Argentine corn production is significantly lower than estimates from its attaché and 2 prominent exchanges. The deviations in estimates have been going on for some months now. Why is this? Is that for Mike?
Yeah, Mike, you want to give some perspective on that?
The perspective is it's in any given month, we're evaluating all data. And if you'd like a preview of the May WASDE, well, you have to wait until the May WASDE.
Okay. All right. Scott Richmond asks, how do USDA agencies decide on commodities or topics which it adds or enhances data dashboards? Does it consult with industry/stakeholders on the dashboard? So probably a couple of folks may want to respond on that.
I don't know that I can speak to a global process, but I know that we get we respond to feedback we hear. We're engaged with the industry on a regular basis. So we try to find the ways that our products, at least within AMS, can best serve the people who are using it. And so I think that's primarily how it's driven from our end.
Jen, anything you want to add?
We had some deliberations online about what was meant by dashboards. We have the Tableau visualizations that I spoke about earlier, and we have an internal review process. A proposal is brought to management, and the individuals who are interested in providing those often are getting feedback from stakeholders, but also know that their data and what they're capable of producing. So it's a bit of an internal deliberative process to see if we have the data, the capability, and the interest potentially from stakeholders as well. Kelly, do you want to add anything?
Okay. I will say at the Ag Outlook Forum, NASS has been the host of new data products, an online session, and that has always been super well attended. And so I know there's a lot of interest out there, but maybe there's some opportunity to be a little more disciplined about how we take input. Has there been any discussion of re-adding objective yield results? I assume for back into the August yield estimates to address backyardism in surveys. Anthony, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think we made that change, was it probably 10 years ago? We went away from the August timeframe and went into September. And really based on the work and what we've seen, I don't think we've had any discussions about bringing that back in August. We were going to stick to that September timeframe, but definitely something we can discuss.
Okay. Lance, anything to add?
I would just remind folks that the reason that we stopped doing that in August is because it is not very informative that early in the season. You're mostly counting plant population, things of that nature. And so there's a tremendous leap to get from the counts you're able to obtain at the end of July. That's when an August objective yield timeframe field work would happen. And as we mentioned earlier, we have to try to be as efficient and as, productive with the resources that we have. And so if you're spending a lot of time and money on something that really isn't very informative, that's not really meeting that objective of being efficient and being good stewards of the funds that the good taxpayers of this country have entrusted us with.
You've also got, remote sensing as another look in terms of just how the crop's progressing, an NDVI type model. Is there USDA contact info if there are ideas, suggestions, recommendations, et cetera, that one wants to submit or share with USDA? I'll let you self-select who wants to answer first.
I think each of us as individual agencies are open to hearing all the ideas and suggestions you can send us. I think most of us are probably pretty visible in terms of how you can reach us in a variety of formats. And quite frankly, if you know somebody at one agency, but you want to talk about another, reach out to that person. We will be more than happy to connect you with the folks in other agencies as well. I know I get tons of questions and such in that may not apply to NASS, and I'll make sure they get to whoever they need to, and my colleagues will do the same thing.
No wrong front door.
I may add from ERS too that at the bottom of our web topic pages, there's typically a point of contact listed. And you can start there. And typically, if we can't respond, but we think someone else like at NASS or the board can respond, we try to connect you with the right person in our response back to the stakeholders.
Maybe I'll add to that too. Just want to say the same is true for the FAS website, and I can assure you that every question is getting answered by the people. Every question is seen that comes to the contact us and on the FAS website.
I guess I'll just chime in that AMS, it's similar setup. We have contact information. It comes through to us through those channels, and it gets handled by the people who are best suited to handle it.
Well, we'll take one more online, then come back to the room. I think narratives are incredibly important to USDA data products to provide context and transparency. We've seen a loss of some of that already last year with the quarterly trade reporting. With a push to move towards data downloads and dashboards, as well as the precedent of quarterly trade, will narratives be preserved and maintained? Kelly? He's got to go get the mic.
Can you just repeat the very last part? I know it was about quarterly trade, but what was the last part?
Will narratives be preserved and maintained with the push to move towards data downloads and dashboards, as well as the precedent of the quarterly trade? Will narratives be preserved and maintained?
Well, yes, we do preserve and maintain information. James, do we archive those on the website? Are there? Yep. So we have all of those reports, so you can see the historical information. I mean, we do continue to put that report out quarterly. As the person who's asking this question is alluding to, it's just the data now. It's not the narrative, but that data is still there. But you can go back and look in time and get those previous reports, and we'll continue to do that.
I would just say that for us, as we move towards a little different approach with data dissemination, I think it's important that, especially for things that relate to methodology, that we can bring those to the fore and even hopefully make those a little clearer and more upfront with folks. That's one of the things I've certainly instructed our teams on. Any others? Yeah.
Just want to add that we have no intention of cutting out the narratives in our circulars, so we will continue that format. Sometimes it's looked upon as not so cutting edge, but we know that there's still demand for that storytelling. And I think it's visualizations are a nice complement to the whole story, but we appreciate hearing that the story is still of value to our stakeholders.
And I would just add for AMS Market News, just as an example, the feeder and stocker cattle dashboard that we just put out was partly to replace an existing legacy format flat file. It also includes, among the data visualization, which makes it easier to get to the data, it also includes a place where the market commentary that appeared every week still appears. So preserve that part of it.
Okay, I'll come back to the room. Yes, sir.
Hi, Max Quint with Bungie. My question is for the whole panel. Over the last few census of ag, say since early 2000s or mid 1990s, we've seen the average age of the U.S. farmer grow, and just in the last census of ag to reach 58 years of age. My question is, does USDA think this is a problem, either from a survey response type perspective or a data visualization perspective, or, as the average age of the U.S. farmers grow, do we think, is this a problem that's being discussed internally within the USDA? Is there anything being discussed or worked on in terms of solutions to this problem, if we see this as a problem? Thank you.
It's a little oriented a little bit as a policy question, but maybe we can take it on as a data question. Panelists?
I'll just say I think 58 is not that old. I just want to go on record as saying that. I forget how many Tim years that is, but it's not that many. I think one of the questions you asked was, do we think that has an impact on response or things of that nature? I mean, I do think that age or generation of the respondent can have an impact on how or the method they might want to use to respond. And that's part of the reason that we try to make sure that we're providing, as I mentioned earlier, many different ways to meet the producers where they're at, whether it's because of age or just some other reason that would impact the preference for how they want to communicate with USDA.
Others? I think there's probably a multitude of ways one could look at this. I mean, in one way, that technology on farms may be allowing folks to farm longer than they otherwise would. My father-in-law farmed well into his 80s. He stayed away from some of the cropping, but continued to work with his cattle. And, part of the reason he was able to do that was that technology had changed. If this were the 1970s, that would not have been possible. USDA has had a number of programs almost in every administration around new and beginning farmers. And so, that's kind of an evergreen topic. But I think it's that sort of is oriented a little around policy, not just around data, but it's ours to illuminate those data trends. Okay, we're going to go back out here and let's see. Jen Bond, I think this is for you. How can USDA develop, this is from Colin Waters, how can USDA develop data pertaining to energy and other developments that impact farmers? Massive solar installations, AI centers, drawing energy, water, etc.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Joe. We had active dialogue on this among our panelists, and every division has something, a product research related to this, mostly in the research or the RRED, and Tom Worth is here, division director. And the bioenergy statistics data product, which we just updated this last week. Stephen Ramsey's here, may be able to speak to it, but I'd like to invite Steve Wallander, who's online, to share sort of an aggregated response for us. Steve, if you're online, would you like to join?
Sure. I just want to quickly flag, in addition to the quarterly bioenergy statistics, 2024 reports we had. One looked at trends related to controlled environment agriculture and agrivoltaic systems. So the energy installations you're talking about, those would be integrated with the agricultural production in that report. And then we had a May 2024 report that looked at utility scale solar and wind development and land use cover change. So that addresses part of this question as well. So we'd have to get back to you and check just to make sure, but I'm not aware of anything looking at the AI data center piece of that right now. But we do periodically look at either the land use, land change data, or the farm income from on-farm energy things such as fracking or solar or wind. We do sometimes have those questions, not every year in ARMS, but they get added periodically.
Next question, also from Colin to the World Board. Can World Board commit to publishing their price model?
Commit to publishing our price model. Yeah, I think this, I think the question here is, I mean, can we commit to providing a little bit more detailed perspective on our methods? I mean, the truth of the matter is, I mean, for all of everything that goes into the World Board, everything that goes into the WASDE, you know, there isn't necessarily one model where you basically are, you know, putting in the numbers, turning a crank and getting an output. This is a committee process where we use a lot of information. We sort through a lot of information to come up with the estimates that we put together. So it isn't necessarily as simple as just documenting one process to come up with the exact answer. But what we can do, I think, is provide a little bit more detail and perspective on this process, this deliberative process, the committee process that goes into all of the numbers that we publish.
Thanks, Mark. Travis, I think this one's for you, from Amanda Brondi. Hello, USDA publishes information on cold storage. It is useful, but there are also some limitations due to the products tracked, surveys received, and length duration for the products in storage. We have learned that these reports are being used to paint what is positioned as a comprehensive picture of refrigerated capacity in the United States. This is inaccurate for the reasons listed above. Would USDA consider articulating the limitations of the data presented to prevent misuse and misallocation of this data? Travis?
Can you repeat the question, Joe? Because that's a
okay.
Very broad question, and I'm not sure
We
how much
publish
we can
data
elaborate
on cold storage. It is useful, but there are some limitations due to the products tracked, surveys received, and length duration for products and storage. We've learned that the use of these reports are being used to paint what is positioned as a comprehensive picture of refrigerated capacity in the United States. This is inaccurate for the reasons listed above. Obviously, we don't collect every kind of thing that's in cold storage, or those that are only in storage for a short period of time. Would USDA consider articulating the limitations of the data presented to prevent misuse and misallocation of these data?
The goal for your cold storage is to provide a time shot at the end of the month for every month throughout the year. Of the items, it's 110 items that are in the report that we publish for the US. And then we have regional data for certain items. Not all items are available to be published due to confidentiality policies that we have in place to protect the integrity of the operations and how people use the data. We can't police that process. We're out there to provide a unbiased process and product out there so that folks can have the data available for the items that we have. So if it's pork production or if it's the vegetables, the eggs, and refrigerated cold storage capacity, and then every 2 years we do a biannual capacity report in addition to our monthly cold storage report that provides what capacity is out there. by state in that if it's public or private entities for people's awareness. But how people use it in their interpretation, unfortunately, we can't control how people are interpreting the data. We're just there to provide the source as information, unless I'm missing some part of the question.
No, something we might take back is just to describe the limitations of the data. We talk about what it is, but maybe in terms of limitations, for example, distribution warehouses that maybe have cold stock are not included, right? Because that inventory is turning over like every 3 days. So I think we have said that, but maybe we could be a little more direct about it.
So that's the one thing in our survey methodology of the monthly report. That information is there, what's included, how many facilities meet the definition for NASS processes is there provided in the survey methodology in the back of the report. And the counts are there on the biannual report of what capacity operations are and how much volume there is that meet the NASS definition for cold storage, like those warehouses or export-import facilities. They're too short-term of operation, so they would not be part of the process. We're trying to get long-term cold storage capacity so that that volume is there, not a day-to-day change of operation volume.
Okay, thanks. Lijian Zhuang, to improve the consistency and accuracy of data filtering, what comments would the panel suggest to standardize and align the terminology used across USDA data sets? For instance, filtering by seeds versus grain may return different results depending on how the data were entered. Would it be possible to provide end users with a clear guidance on when to use grain and when to use seeds as search filters in the online USDA database or databases? Don't raise your hands all at once.
I think that goes back to maybe some of the comments earlier about a more consistent or standardized approach to USDA data. It's a great idea. It's something that we have heard, continue to hear. We have conversations about. We're not there yet. And so as of today, I don't know that we would have a great answer for that because there are uniquenesses across the agencies at this point.
There's certainly been, Tim, I don't know if you say anything about efforts within FPAC that you all have worked hard on some standardization, I know.
Yeah, and one of the things that we can do on these products that we publish is provide an about page or provide a page that gives some context on what the data is and maybe methodologies to how you formulated it or what it means behind. So as far as where we are at today, that's probably where we are, is do the best we can do to describe the data, where it's coming from, how you might intend to use it, things like that.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in? Okay. We'll do one more online and come back to the room. Will federal milk market, this is from Alexandria Kumbe? Will federal milk market order data and reporting become available via API? For example, statistical reports or uniform price report? Cole?
Can you repeat that? I
Yes.
missed the first part.
Will the federal milk marketing order data and reporting become available via API? For example, the statistical reports or the uniform price report? Looking for an API.
I can say there's been some expansion to and improvements to the API that's available for the dairy portion from AMS in this last year. And I might have to refer back and get to the person who's question and get some specifics on exactly which part, and we can clarify it and find out how soon that'll be available.
Okay, great. And just remind everybody, many of you know this, but these questions, we'll go back to them. And if there's some further illumination we need to make, that'll all be posted on the part of our webpage that hosts the data users meeting. So that'll all be out there pretty quickly, as quickly as we can kind of get our answers rounded up and post it out. How about back in the room? That back corner? Okay. Okay, we'll go not to Seth, but the other person with their hand up.
All right,
Back over
Bob
here.
Moltzberger with Factory.
I work with Seth, but this is my own question.
Oh, okay.
So I have a kind of a comment and a big request, and I don't know if it's even possible. It's for NASS. So over time, NASS has dropped commodities, and that production seems to go away, even though it shows up and carries reports eventually as other receipts, right? Or it shows up in FSA data. There's planting acreage, even if it's undisclosed, but it's disclosed in FSA, where there's planted and failed, and RMA has some yields for some of the crops, or it shows up in NASS cropland CROS, there's acreage. Is there any possibility with the data sharing that we can fill some of those gaps at the county and state level?
So there's a couple of things there. First off, NASS, every 5 years after the census, we review our entire program to determine, where we're getting the most bang for the buck by covering different commodities, what states we cover them in, things of that nature. Unfortunately, we simply just don't have the time or resources to estimate every single commodity in every single state on an annual basis. That's just reality. In terms of could we fill some of those gaps with the problem is that we theoretically could fill some of the gaps, but you would not be able to fill all of the gaps. And so that creates a real dilemma, right? So if now, I'm able to fill in the missing states planted acreage that I could get from FSA, but I don't have any information to fill in maybe the harvested acres or maybe even the yield. Or maybe I could, but maybe it'll take me a year later before I've got all the pieces that could fill that in. And so now I'm going to change the US total between when I publish in January and maybe when I publish a year later. I can tell you farmers don't love it when we change acres or production later on. And so anyway, so there's this whole dilemma, right? About you have some of the pieces, but you don't have all of the pieces. And so if you can't do it all, filling in and making a US total represent something different for planted acres than it represents for production, it just creates a giant mess because we just don't have all the pieces we would need to fill it in.
And certainly appreciate the desire for a rectangular data set, right? Every state, every crop. We probably get as close to that with a census, but and that is often our answer for state commodity combinations that are not common or dominated by a few producers. Well, let's see. Let's take Rob. Yes, go ahead, sir.
First, you guys do a great job in documenting all the Q&As that come up during the data users meeting. I really appreciate that. In that sort of same vein, will you be doing the same on the RFI questions that you got from, like, what type of response is that going to be provided, whether electronically or in a paper version? Thanks.
Kelly, do you want to respond to that? We haven't really discussed precisely what that will look like, but I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. We haven't talked about, what the readout is. I mean, all the comments are publicly available. Everyone can go and read them. And the public comment period just closed on April 9th. And so, we haven't even really finished what our deep dive is into thinking through a strategy, because a lot of those themes were consistent across the three agencies. And so we want to make sure that we're having a coordinated approach. I mean, that's a theme that's even come out of the questions here in terms of, what our organizations are doing, these three organizations, but really collectively across the data providers at the department. And so having a coordinated approach, some things that we're working on together, getting some feedback out. I mean, it's a great suggestion. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I would just say that your Q&A that you do for this meeting is a good template for how you'll respond to the RFI, in the sense that rather than grouping things in large thematic areas and sort of washing out some of the specific questions that you get, it could be more transparent if you try to address as many of the specifics as you can.
Acknowledge. I think I saw a hand over here.
Regina Gavillo. One request and one question, please. For FAS,
you publish grain, world markets and trade reports every month and also for oil seeds. They're not showing up on the publication search page from USDA. The last one there was from August, so we have to go to your page to get them. So just when you're, I guess, redesigning everything, if you could put the link back there, I would greatly appreciate it. The second question ties into what was asked earlier, and it's for NASS. And Lance, I was wondering if you could walk us through the process of dropping or, heaven forbid, adding a state to your AYP and that, like, your AYP surveys. Like, how does that work? Is it a number of acres? Do you sit in a room and make a decision? Can you just walk us through that process, please?
Yeah, so sure, as I alluded to earlier, we do it every 5 years, following the Census of Agriculture. And the timing of that is for a reason, because when we do the census, we actually get data for all 50 states for each commodity, right? So now we have a complete set of data. And so typically we will focus on, we'll take those states, we'll array them from top to bottom, largest to smallest. We'll calculate a percent of total as we go. And our general rule of thumb is that we're shooting for 90 to 95% coverage with the states that we include in our annual program, at 90 to 95% of the U.S. total. We typically will focus on production, but also we will take into account when we do that review, was it a bad year in a certain part of the country or something? So we make sure that we don't accidentally, if you will, drop a state out just because they were abnormally low in a certain season or things of that nature. And so in a nutshell, that's basically how we look at it. We'll look across every commodity in the same manner. Now, I say 90 to 95%, but we're realistic as well. And so obviously it's not a fixed number, because there may be cases where you've got a commodity where 6 states gets you 88% of the coverage and you have to add 14 more to get to 90. And so, we try to be smart and efficient with those choices as well. And in other instances, maybe, you can hit 90% with 12 states and add one more and get 98. We're probably going to go, 98% coverage. But that's the methodology that we use to make those decisions year in and year out. And the idea, of course, is agriculture moves, right? And so we need to track that, and that's what we use the census for and adjust our program accordingly.
Okay, I'm going to jump back out online. We've got about 8 minutes left before we begin to wrap up. So I'll try to get some of these and also get a couple more questions. So if you got one burning, I'm going to get your hand up fast when I come back to the room. Jen Bond, this question is kind of about the knock-on effects around input price shock, like fertilizer. Will updated forecasts reflect not only changes in fertilizer cost, but also expected impacts to crop yield, decisions to cull livestock due to higher feed price, et cetera? How will these be incorporated in models?
Thank you. Yes, so we have some feedback from Jeff Gillespie online that I'll share, but I'd also like to just invite Carrie Lukowski also to potentially comment. So I'll share Jeff's response first, and then Carrie, if you want to add on. So Jeff wanted to share that the commodity costs and returns change with price changes between survey years. With new survey years, technology and input quantities may also change. And Kate Bike-Norris, you're in the crowd here too, from the Arms Gathering, the group. Did you want to add anything onto that too?
No, I think Jeff covered it pretty well.
Okay, thanks. All right, Carrie, is there anything to add from farm income?
Sure, yeah, I would say in the farm income accounts, what we're forecasting and estimating is spending on production inputs. So that reflects changes in both prices and quantities used, which I think perhaps gets at that question.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We primarily access NASS data through the QuickStats API integrated in our analytical workflows. However, we continue to face several challenges. It goes on around complex query constructions. Bottom line is, given these issues, is there any current work underway to address the API limitations, simplify the data structure consistency, or better support large-scale multi-jurisdictional data extraction and harmonization? Lance, what do you got?
Short term, no, we don't have anything actively in the works to address that, but we have had conversations actually very recently, right, Joe, about we certainly recognize the need in the not too distant future to put some attention on modernizing quick stats. When I say modernizing, I'm really talking about the underlying data structure and things of that nature. So it is on our radar, but we don't have anything actively underway today.
I think it's fair to say that our near term is trying to get upgraded our data dissemination process, which will allow us to be more efficient and also put a better product on the street. And then also around this chatbot, which will hopefully allow a little better natural language processing for questions that won't cause people to have to try to write complex queries in many cases. Let's see. Thanks for the work you do on the crop progress report. This year, we've been missing pasture and range conditions in the national report. Can you explain why that went away and if it'll be available later in the season? Anthony?
It should be in there. I'll have to look at it. But we'll take a look at it and see.
Okay.
And it may be one that comes later in the year, Joe. I'll have to look at it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we did not drop it. So that's something we'll definitely look at.
Okay, we'll take a look, but that's probably the case. Does the one file program anticipate a reduction in staff or office space in the FSA NRCS county offices? Tim, I don't know if you have any comment there.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that as far as any reductions in staff. I've not heard anything about reducing staff related to one farmer, one file. We have more than 2,000 county offices. And one of the things I brought up in my slides was on the new Farmers Bridge Assistance Program, we achieved a 10% electronically filed application, which was fantastic for FSA, right? But that means 90% of it's happening somewhere else, right? And that somewhere else is the FSA county office. So I think it's important just to keep that into perspective. I guess when I think about a question like that.
All right, thanks. Let's come back to, oh, wow, boy, that got some hands going. I'm gonna go here because we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah, Ryan Corey with Argus Media. This is probably a question mostly for Cole. We work with a pretty good section of the organic industry in the United States, and it's kind of a persistent blind spot, but there are no real metrics around what the livestock feed demand side of the industry looks like, either regard to kind of poultry inventories or dairy inventories, and it's kind of an ongoing factor of price volatility within the industry. And I guess with that being a consistent issue that we see, are there any kind of plans or any kind of opportunities to expand that coverage within the AMS in terms of monthly inventories or monthly increase in the accuracy of the organic poultry slaughter data?
So you're speaking with regard to the inventories of the livestock, the poultry, the livestock, and that side, not the feed grains. I was going to point out we do have the organic feed side of things that we've got some information on, but you're specifically talking about organic poultry slaughter and that type of thing.
Yeah, it really is an issue that the industry has no anticipation of where demand is. So it's constantly either undershooting or overshooting supply, and having better metrics around poultry slaughter, for example, as a means to understanding what demand looks like on a more accurate basis.
Sure. Well, I don't know if we have the ability to expand that, but that's great feedback to get. I think what I would need to do is talk with some of the folks in our organization on that side of things. It's always challenging to get some of that information. We always, and to get some of that data. But I will look into it, and we will post or get back to you on what the possibilities and what's available out there.
I'm looking for hands. I see Jerry. Anybody else? Okay, Bill. I haven't heard from Bill first. I'm coming back to you, Jerry, but I haven't heard from Bill. So, okay.
Thank you for pulling this together. It's always wonderful to have the opportunity to hear you address the questions and concerns of the audience. And you all should be commended this is two-sided. Y'all should be commended for how far you've brought along the deputy secretary in understanding what you're doing and endorsing the statistical value of the statistics you provide and the integrity and consistency. You've got him down inside the 10-yard line. It's first and goal. You got to get him the rest of the way. And when he has today and previously discussed forecasts being correct, I start to twitch because correct forecast is something that's somewhat of an oxymoron. So I don't think that necessarily should be a goal. Your best forecast, yes, but for that to be a goal, he's going to be inevitably disappointed. My suggestion or request or comment is about mandatory survey participation. So rates are low. I think we've talked about this before. The Census Bureau is able to do it and get everybody to participate. But I'm just wondering, you know, for $12 billion, can't you get them to fill out a damn postcard a couple times a year?
Well, I'm going to go back to your first question or first comment. I will say that I've had the pleasure of having multiple conversations with the deputy secretary, and we've had conversations about when we get to the end of the marketing year, it's pretty clear, especially for certain crops. Take soybeans, for example. There is something close to a final answer. And so I don't want to interpret somebody else's words, but I think that is what he's referring to is how do we do against the final answer? Okay. And in terms of mandatory reporting, that is to some extent a policy question. It requires a legislation. And so, you know, that's something that we could take up with those that influence policy. Jerry.
Got behind me here. Ended up, renewable diesel has, we know, expanded dramatically with this new policy in this administration about expanding that opportunity, which is fantastic for soybean oil and that type of thing. And I know that they're two different agencies, and I don't know if we have an energy person listening to that or involved with us here and that, but being able to get a better handle on that particular thing, I think is a goal for all of us in agriculture because of this demanding, it looked like to me a demanding approach here. And even right now, I've heard a lot of commentary because of the fact that soybean oil is high, but it's relatively speaking with the expanded price of diesel in California alone, is being utilized very strongly. So at this point, we're still having a very, very strong demand for soybean oil versus meal. And that's also messing with our soybean relationships a lot. And so I guess, is there something out there in the interrelationships between energy and agriculture that we can maybe get a better sense of all the data that's involved in renewable diesel? It's more of a policy idea. I know there's no answer to come from this, but I think it's something that's important. It's not going to get smaller going forward. So that, to me, that's a new horizon that we need to all look at.
I don't know. Jen, thanks.
Sure, I'll take a stab. So we have in the audience here a couple folks that I think may be able to shed some light on this topic. I may note, though, that one of our former staff members, Todd Hubbs, wrote a series of articles for Farm Doc Daily that talks a bit about changes in that particular industry. So there's a series there that might provide some good background information that references data from, I think, probably every single one of our agencies up here. I hate to put on the spot, folks, but Steve Ramsey manages our bioenergy product, but also works in alternative energy and in sustainable aviation fuels. And Bryn Swearingen is here, and she works in oil crops as well. So I think I'll turn the microphone over to them to see if there's some additional comment you'd like to provide on Jerry's line of questioning.
Yeah, so Steve Ramsey, ERS, so I manage our bioenergy product. And so from just a data perspective, we do track that in a couple of tables in the bioenergy data product. We're capturing the balance sheet for renewable diesel on either a calendar year or a soybean oil marketing year basis. So we are tracking some of the data. And then as far as like the intersection between the renewable diesel and the agriculture, the soybean oil balance sheet is also included in that data product. And then if Bryn or Joanna want to speak to kind of the rest of the research or the discussion around the oil seeds, I'll let you. But yeah, Bryn.
So as far as the other side, he's kind of the bioenergy person, but from our perspective, we're looking at all the different feedstocks. So in the oil crops outlook at ERS, we've published, in addition to like Todd's farm docs, we've had ones on the expansion of soybean meal exports. We've had special articles in the outlooks on the increase of imported feedstocks, and then how does this look for feedstock availability? I think that was in February of 2025. So we're doing our best to try to provide any of the assumptions that are underlining our specific biofuel use numbers. And so I just highly recommend you read those outlook reports for any future updates in that space. But if you need those information, I can get them to you.
Okay, I'll let you guys have a
Yeah, that's
conversation after the
Sorry.
fact, because we're at time and I want to bring us to a close. A couple of quick points and then we'll close it out here. There's about a half a dozen questions online we didn't get to. We will get answers. They will be posted. Obviously, if you want to have conversations with folks, they're going to be here, and many of you will be here tomorrow as well, and we'll have staff here as well. Thanks to all the panelists. I appreciate it. I was very pleased to see that we had questions really for everybody, and some really great questions. And so y'all are important to us. It is important that we take input, that we learn every time that we come here. You may not see, your particular change immediately take place, but I assure you that we are taking your input and it gives us much to think about. And we try to react and continually improve, as Dr. Hutchins said. I got to thank our organizers. I got to thank the Kansas City Fed. I got to thank Sammy and Vincent. The KC Fed, this is a great venue and super appreciate their willingness to work with us. And this was said earlier, y'all can help us. Response is important. Almost all farmers go through an intermediary of some form. Many of you are intermediaries. You have folks that respond to your newsletters, or you work and speak to groups of farmers. And it's easy that if you only tune in for a little bit, as you're busy with many, many other things as a farmer, a rancher, to not have a full picture of things. And you all have a better picture of what we do and how we do it. So please help communicate that, because these are public goods that we produce, and we need your help to be able to keep them sustainable. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a great week. Take care.